In the middle of a war zone, two lords come face to face as one calls out the other one for ordering a hidden army to sneak in from the back. It was a terrifying scene as he was ready for revenge, and his revenge was that all of his subordinates would soon swarm in this area and destroy it to its core. But his threat was of no use because he was the 72nd Demon Lord Ashtero, who was the weakest of them all. He had no juniors and no soldiers, and didn't even have a fighting ability. His castle is done forever. Ashtaroth understood the fact that if this entire situation is real, he is definitely done. His castle would fall. However, Ashtaroth snaps his fingers, which creates a huge pit in the ground, letting Jack witness how far-sighted he was. It was a large pit with people inside it. This confuses Jack to his core as he was unsure about what just happened. So Ashtaroth explains it to him that attacking places with the least amount of defenses is natural. He intentionally decreased the number of guards in the back and made a pitfall there. Hence it looked like the job was done. Moreover, he ordered all the kobolds to scatter. All of the warriors started spreading and were ready to attack. Jack asks Ashtaroth if all these soldiers laying in wait for an ambush the entire time. Turns out these soldiers were a special unit Ashtaroth had kept hidden for situations like these. These kobolds are the ones led by a human. Everyone was shocked that how does he possess such a large army as he was supposed to be a newborn demon lord. Moreover, back in the Ashtaroth castle, the castle's maid Eve was serving tea when Ashtaroth orders her to set up an emergency strategy meeting straight away as they do not have much time. Eve bows down in front of Lord Ashtaroth, expressing her loyalty as she asks Lord Ashtaroth to use her as much as he likes, and she wants to please her master in any way possible, even if it is sleeping together or harming herself. She will do anything at all without any hesitation. However, Ashtaroth asks the maid to be focused on being a secretary for now, and first of all he required materials for the expansion of the castle, so he asks her if any materials are available. However, Eve hoped that they had materials, but if not, then her first priority was to secure materials. Therefore, now they had to come up with a plan on how they could do it. Eve suggested that they could build a new farm in the castle, expand the castle town, increase the population, and increase the tax revenue, and further they could summon an army for harvesting or plundering. Hence, these are the most common methods. Moreover, Lord Ashtaroth decides on plundering as it is the quickest method. Moreover, currently in the castle it was only Maid Eve and Lord Ashtaroth, and if they expand their army they can strengthen the castle's defense as well. It's like killing two birds with one stone. Furthermore, Lord Ashtaroth was going to start summoning and commanding Eve to collect the raw materials quickly. Moreover, Eve gathers all the materials into the pot and summons a soldier. It was exactly like a game. Summoning was similar to the gacha systems in mobile phones where people can summon 10 plus 1 special. 10 consecutive summonings later, several skeleton warriors were generated. Their skill was regeneration, and their combat power was 82. 10 consecutive summonings were a failure. However, with this, they had the army that they required. They also generated some more wood golems. Therefore, they will leave the wood golems with higher combat power to guard the castle. Furthermore, it is now time to invade the castles of other demon lords. Therefore, they decided to scout out and harvest the surrounding areas. Now another question was if there are any humans in this world. So Lord Ashtaroth revealed that there are various human kingdoms in this world. But another question which popped up was that if there are any powers that rival the demon lords. Hence, this is something they will find out if they keep looking. In simpler words, humans aren't just sitting rocks. Lord Ashtaroth isn't aware of the standard in this world, but were there heroes here? Asked Lord Ashtaroth, so Maid Eve tells him that there are 72 heroes that have a unique special attack designed for each demon lord. Each demon king ordered their subordinates to hunt down the heroes. Lord Ashtaroth's ears instantly dropped when he heard the word special attack skill. Eve aggressively emphasizes that she wants to get rid of them along with children before they become a threat, which is expected of a demon lord. In another world, a game is being played. In the game story, the demon lord becomes the villain and was defeated by the hero, even though the demon lord had the strongest power. Turns out this happened because the demon lord was too relaxed. Dispersion of strength. It was foolish of the demon lord to place weak monsters near the hero's village. It is as if he was begging for them to raise their levels. He sent off forces one by one, and when he found the hero, he didn't even reinforce the army. Demon Lord was foolishly waiting without doing anything in the castle. As Lord Ashtaroth thought about these disasters, he was disappointed to his core. And then suddenly another thought rushed to Lord Ashtaroth that there might be human equipment in this castle as he ran towards Eve to ask her. However, Eve asks Lord Ashtaroth that how does he know this information as it is only recorded on obscure and hidden pages in the different world? Why is the strongest weapon, which is the weakness of the devil, located at the castle itself? It might be a common thing in this world, but Eve was confused as she did not get it at all. There was no end to stupidity that caused the demon lord to be defeated by the hero because of these ridiculous customs. Eve calls Lord Ashtariot stupid for liking heroes, as she was confused. Moreover, Lord Ashtariot throws the symbol of power in the volcano. This disturbs Eve, as it was a symbol of power, which is supposed to be enshrined in the demon lord castle. But Ashtariot believed that it is a useless symbol, nothing but a backfire threat. Therefore, if he were to encounter a hero, then he might be able to gather information from the other demon lords to defeat the hero. Eve thought this was a wonderful idea as she asked him if he was going to do it by bribing him. However, Lord Ashtariot explained that the reason is because the enemy of your enemy is your ally, so they are going to continue searching for the hero that might be a child. Hence, Lord Ashtariot commanded Eve to find a hero child, because as soon as she does, he will kill them himself to defeat the hero as a child by the demon. Lord himself is something that is unheard of. Lord Ashtariot adds that he cannot get caught up in the tradition born the last. He is the BS of the 72 demon lords, and if they did a frontal assault, then the difference in strength would be apparent, and this is the reason why you will encounter it with realism. Eve had no idea what realism is as she was confused, so Lord Ashtariot explains that it is trickery. It means to do whatever one can do to boost the power of the country and overthrow the opponent, as he is not aiming to become a genius sage, but the ringleader. Furthermore, Eve talks about Liu Bei, who was the hero in another world and was also a warlord in the late Eastern Han dynasty. Ashtarit Sama had inherited it rather than dying. While spouting some hypocritical matters, he preferred to live, even if he had to put his hands in dirt while doing it. Therefore, he wants to carry out clever tactics in line with realism, so using a minority to keep the majority and check, even though this entire ideology pretty much violates the art of war. But he does not mind, and the first step is to collect all the information. This information includes the information of the country or nobles of people around here, and who is the weakest demon lord in the area. In this area, there is the Aimun territories. Furthermore, the demon lord in the area would be Sabinaku. Lord Ashtaroth was impressed by the information he got from the maid-clothed database. Demon lords are thought to be a brutal, cruel creature. But Lord Ashtaroth felt different. He knew he wasn't an exception, but he was hesitating. He was hesitating on whether he could kill someone that is innocent. It might be because he is still a newborn demon lord, or it might be because it is a human child. Next day, they find a human child who was a slave. So first of all, Lord Ashtaroth questions him that where is he from. He was from the Sabinaku castle. So Lord Ashtaroth tells him that it is his territory. Did he dress fast, despite knowing it's the enemy country? But the human slave would not say anything. Except help, he tells them that everyone was scared at the Sabinaku castle. His father and mother worked until they could not move, and he could not get any food for him and his sister. He was on the ground begging for mercy, as he added that a new demon king had appeared. He did not care whatever happened to him, but instead of him, he wanted Lord Ashtaroth to kill Sabinaku. Lord Ashtaroth thought it was a great idea, as he was able to cut off his stupid hesitation, and that man named Sabinaku seems to be worthy of getting killed with a dirty tactic. He will use everything he has to crush him into oblivion. The human slave seemed a bit content as he said, Ashido, the demon king of Ashtaroth, I have hope in you. After all, the other gods disliked being in charge though, but he chose him because he admired his talent. As the lady in a white gown watching from above commands Lord Ashtaroth to go meet her expectations, the realist demon lord. Suddenly, the demon Lord Ashtaroth wakes up in the middle of the night, confused and panicked as he was waking up Eve. His consciousness was mixed like a muddy river in my confusion. He had understood a few things at first. He was a good-for-nothing researcher. Then he was reincarnated into a new world, for some reason. Third, this body is not human. Who goes into a flashback of earlier in time, he was naked and on the ground in front of a rocky mountain, as he was reincarnated in a new world, and he was born as the demon king of Ashtaroth. Then suddenly the bells started ringing, the angels started blowing trumpets, and he heard a voice saying, Hello, demon king Ashtaroth. It was his rebirth celebration. The light bulb didn't show up, and he would be referred to as Ashto. His name is Ashto, and he was the transcendental person chosen by God to become the demon king Ashtaroth and feel free to call himself whatever he likes. Moreover, it was about time that he showed himself But appearance is not the essence of things. He kept hearing the voice. This voice told him that it will tell him some important things. But Ashto was more interested in hearing those things face to face. There was a blop in the sky. Suddenly something was coming down. Ashto could see the hands and was terrified. It was a beautiful girl. Ashto could not look away as he was mesmerized by her beauty and asked her if she was a goddess. To which she replied that most certainly she could resurrect, transport, and reincarnate other people. She is an imperfect being that cannot meddle with this word, but a detailed explanation is troublesome, so she decided to not say anything about herself and asks Ashto to call her whatever he wants. So Ashto decides to call her Megami because she saved his dead soul, rebuilt it, and forced him to become a demon lord in a different world. Furthermore, Ashto asks her to elaborate on what she wants him to do. Does she want him to conquer the world? He wanted to know his role in this world. So Megami tells him that he is a realist, as normally if a person wakes up under the circumstances, he will be shocked even if he had memory fragments of a previous life. There is no past, but Ashto on the other hand is trying to find his role based on what little information he knew. Megami asked Ashto if he wanted to know how he died, but Ashto refused to have her reveal that information, but in conclusion, from now on he was going to be the demon lord of the demon lords. In other words, he is going to be the great demon lord. There are 72 demon lords including him, and if he defeats all the demon lords and wins, he will become the demon king. After hearing this, Ashto was highly motivated and wanted to know from where can he start. So the first step was that he should reform the demon lord's army. She wants him to guide this world into a better direction. Each demon lord has their own castle guard. Furthermore, she wants him to run his city, gain military funds, raise his own army, and defeat the other demon lords. As he heard all this information, he went into shock, so Megami asked him if in the world of his previous life, did he not fight between humans? Did he not kill for territory? Megami believed that anywhere in the world where there is intelligent life there will be war, hence he can become one of them by working hard. Furthermore, Ashto asks her if he needs to kill all of the demon lords. Megami tells him that this depends on whether he eradicates his opponents, subordinates, or gains control of their territory. Moreover, as Megami was the goddess responsible for him, in that capacity, she wishes him good luck and tells him that if he becomes a demon king, he will be like a god, having to kill is annoying first of all. She would like to understand his ability as a demon lord. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy well, and she asks him to destroy things to test his capabilities. As he was destroying things, he stopped. He told the goddess that he is completely naked and does not even have any underwear on, so how is he supposed to beat them? But the goddess believed that Ashto had the power to change the world. He does not require any help further. If he wishes to destroy that rock, he can just wish it, and that becomes reality. As he wishes to destroy upon the rock is broken into pieces. Ashto was shocked at his own power, so the goddess told him that soon he will be called the strongest demon lord. Moreover, Ashto asked the goddess about his castle, as she mentioned earlier that demon lords get castles. So the goddess tells him that this is his castle, but Ashto was not content with it because it was just a cave. So the goddess tells him that it is because it had just been created. Therefore, rest assured that his strength will grow and expand each time he gains a new power. The goddess tells him that the demon lord's castle is an extension of the core. If the core gets destroyed, then it will be game over. Moreover, she asks him to place his hand over his heart. Thus, his heart is his core, and if his core is destroyed, he will die. In other words, he has to destroy their core or engage in diplomacy. If his opponent proceeds in any way, then he wins. However, it is better to attack the enemy castle, but that will leave his castle defenseless for the time being. So Ashto asks the goddess if there is any way he can protect his castle. In that regard, the goddess provides him with a tool called the Klein's Vase. He can summon demons if he puts in magic and materials. He can use this to create his strongest forces, and if he combines absolute frozen, soil, and run letter, he can create a frost golem, and he can also create an orc by combining a pregnant sow and dried gecko. This is how he can increase his subordinates, but it doesn't seem like there is any valuable material. Therefore, it wasn't really a good idea to lend a hand, but the goddess believed that Ashto was special. It is the first service. As Megami was doing her magic, she wondered what kind of child is good. Furthermore, Ashto asks Megami if he is going to be here forever, so Megami tells him that she will go back to heaven in a while. So Ashto requests her to create intelligent demons. So Megami replies that she understands that the first demon she will create will have an intelligent specification. She asks him if he has a gender specification, but he doesn't, so Megami makes him a girl. Thus, the girl was coming outside, and Ashto was extremely excited as he kept yelling, "It's coming, it's coming." The girl was a legendary tier demon. She was going to be Ashto's secretary. Her skills included knowledge, loyalty, service, tactics, and governing. Ashto was surprised to see that even her subordinate came out naked. Hence, the goddess decided to get the girl some clothes, and her breasts were even bigger than the goddess. Moreover, the girl was a demon. She had a cute little tail near around her waist, and she did not have any markings on her thighs. The maid even offered to show Ashto her thighs in regards to prove her loyalty. As Ashto was sure that his maid was very loyal to her, he asks her name. However, demons don't usually have a proper name, so Megami asks Ashto to give her a name. Ashto goes into deep thoughts and decides to name her Eve. As Ashto saw Eve's reaction, he asked her if she was fond of the name or not. She had no issue with the name, just wanted to know the meaning of the name. So Ashto tells her that there is another world called Earth, where he conducted research before, and Eve was a name that appeared in the holy scripture of a religion. There it is said that she was the first woman. Eve felt honored as she heard the meaning of the name, as her Lord gave her this name because she was the very first servant. Moreover, since she already had a name, now it was time to introduce her to her work. Since she was Ashto's secretary, she was completely useless in battle. But in return, she was confident that her knowledge will never lose to anybody else. She swore that until the day of this life ended, she will always do whatever she could for Ashto. As all the business was concluded, the goddess bid farewell to everyone and made it clear that she won't be able to meet anyone again in the future. But there was nothing to worry about, as she might meet them once again during a certain important event in the future. So Ashto put her hand forward to shake her goodbye, but this gesture was completely out of the blue for the goddess. So Ashto explained to her that it is a handshake, obviously, and he was shocked when he got the feeling that no one knew about the handshake in this world. So the goddess tells him that the handshake does exist in this world, but they don't have it in the god's realm. They both shake hands, and the goddess tells him that she is sure that he will become a great demon lord in the future, and one last tip that she gave him was that he shall always listen to what Eve says, his best to expand his demon castle. She exits the castle, leaving both of them behind. Eve and Ashto now start brainstorming ideas for their tactics to expand the castle. Ashto knew that apart from knowledge, skill, Eve is great in tactics and learning, so he was really counting on her. Moreover, right now, Ashto was in the middle of a war council after he sheltered a slave who ran away from an enemy country. Ashto did say that he will crush Sabnok into oblivion, but right now he only had Eve and a bit more than a dozen skeletons and 3 golems. At this point, his army is so weak that it's not even funny anymore, so he asks Eve how many more he can summon with their remaining materials. So Eve tells him that he can summon under 20 monsters, and another hurdle was the predicament he did not know what to do about them. The human child hears him, so he informs him that if he is talking about something like weirdly shaped bones or dried bugs, he saw them transported into Sabnok's castle, and Sabnok always bragged about the fact that he has the most amazing treasure with him. Both Eve and Ashto were deep in shock when they heard the slave. Therefore, in other words, invading another demon lord's castle with materials that he plundered from inside that aforementioned castle wasn't a bad deal at all. So Ashto comes up with a plan that he was the weakest demon lord who came up with a wind tactic that they will take that amazing treasure of his for themselves. However, if possible, he would prefer a small lord's territory over a big kingdom. He clarifies to Eve not to misunderstand him. His current objective isn't world domination, it's demon lord subjugation. He would not like it if a big country suddenly launched a large-scale invasion against him. In that regard, Eve suggests him to take a look at the Ismaria earldom, and that too, effective immediately. The Astaroth's army will initiate a plan. Therefore, for this plan to truly succeed, they would need a mole, or bluntly put, a spy. Their first task was to imagine the perfect monster for that role and summon them. So they summoned a silver tier, undesignated and unspecified creature, a slime, in order to send these slimes to Ysmeria and Sabnok and have them spread rumors. Make them say that the newest demon lord, which was born a short while ago, Astaroth, is a natural-born coward, and he is daring to surrender to others because he's afraid of getting attacked. Furthermore, several days later, a fierce man showed outside the castle, yelling at Astaroth to come outside and demands him to pay tax to their lord if he still wishes to see tomorrow. He was Earl Ysmeria's messenger. Earl Ismeria's power is really indispensable to them, especially because they need his army, which is said to be the strongest on the continent in order for a weak being like me to survive this harsh world. So Astaroth promises to give his lord half of his citizens' tax, so he asks the messenger to accept him under his lord's protection. Therefore, the messenger starts laughing, considering it a deal. Astaroth tells the messenger to get ready for a feast as Astaroth orders some girls for him to have a good time. The messenger was extremely pleased as he told Astaroth that he does not have to worry about anything. His grace will definitely protect his territory with all of his power. After hearing that, Astaroth asked for another favor. Astaroth tells the messenger that the other day, Lord Satnok also came and asked for his allegiance, but he turned him down and said that he is going to be Earl's vassal instead. But he suddenly got mad and threatened to attack this castle if he didn't change his answer. As the messenger heard the story, he was extremely furious and started cussing Lord Satnok. As he was threatening to attack, the Astaroth territory, which is already under his grace's protection, is the same as threatening to attack his grace's own territory. And if this kept happening, it will be like smearing dirt on his grace's face. So the messenger asks about when will Lord Satnok attack. So Lord Astaroth tells him that he would attack in a week. That is why they employed him to lend them their strength. So the messenger agrees to report this event straight to his grace as soon as possible. As soon as the Ismeria messenger leaves, the Satnok's messenger shows up. So Astaroth demands to prepare some cash immediately and asks Eve to lower her head as low as she could so that he might have pity on them, as it's just a matter of time before Earl Ismeria invades this territory. So he begs her to please send some reinforcement and show the world the strength of the greatest mercenary who ever lived, because his loyalty is on Satnok Sama's side only. Moreover, 1 week later, the two kingdoms came face to face when the Lion King Lord Satnok starts to yell at Earl Ismeria that how did he invade his cute little brother's territory. So to that, Earl Ismeria replied that don't let that lowly demon invade a territory under their protection. Lord Astaroth was content as his plan was going accordingly. They both were really flaunting their righteous zeal to justify this battle, rather than a battle to decide on who will rule over Lord Astaroth. This seems more like a battle between the pride of two generals. Eve was so amazed and disappointed in the both of them as they could not see that their worthless pride is gaining them nothing. The two of them showed were acting like fools, and things to that Astaroth and Eve had gotten through this without a scratch. But Eve asked whether they are going to launch a surprise attack after they both had weakened each other. However, as they both were busy talking, Eve asked Astaroth that where was the carriage going. Turns out it was going to the Satnok castle. Eve thought that this was not a good idea, and they immediately had to turn back while they still can. But Astaroth believed that they still haven't officially allied with Satnok yet, so betraying them now doesn't really break any rules. But Eve highlighted that this is not the problem here. It is because he is going on such a dangerous mission himself. If something were to happen to him, besides, she is afraid that the golems would not be enough to break the castle's defense by themselves. Astaroth was content and asked Eve not to worry about that, since he had already sent them to go first together with some orcs that he summoned earlier. They were laying in wait nearby. Eve asked Lord Astaroth if he was really going to expose his score so openly like this. If by chance they found out about it, there is a possibility that Lord Astaroth's castle might even crumble to dust. However, Lord Astaroth was determined and was ignorant of the outcomes of his actions. Besides, Lord Astaroth believed that he had started everything from zeros, so even if it ended back up with zero things again and he died, he would not really regret, not even one bit, and it doesn't really matter where they fight. It will all remain the same anyway, whether they win or lose. That's all that counts after listening to what he had said. Eve came to a conclusion that she was serving a madman and asked Lord Astaroth that if he had steeled himself that much, she would not become a hurdle and would not stop him anymore. However, she just asked him to allow her before him to accompany him inside the castle. She promises to not do anything reckless, as she won't be able to enjoy Lord Astaroth's delicious tea if she died, and besides that she has already foreseen and taken this into account when she drafted this plan. That is when Lord Astaroth gets on his knees and asks Eve if she will serve him until the end of their life, to which Eve politely replies with pleasure. Moreover, they finally arrive the Satnok kingdom. The castle had a lot of defense. The guards start questioning Lord Astaroth that who he is and what is he doing in the territory of Demon Lord Satnok Sama. So Lord Astaroth introduces himself to the guards at the entrance of the castle. The guards start murmuring with each other that Astaroth is the name of that new demon lord who recently swore his allegiance to Sabnox-sama. They had also heard that Sabnox-sama went to war for that new demon lord's sake. They were confused about what he was doing here and why wasn't he backing Sabnox-sama up. So Lord Astaroth tells them that someone as strong as Saba won't even need the help of some weakling like him. The guards sufficed with him as they started bragging about the strength of their army, as it was the strongest army out there, to which Lord Astaroth replied that this is the reason why he is here, to offer his tribute to him. The guards suddenly were excited as they thought Lord Astaroth brought them meat in the form of tribute. Lord Astaroth tricks all of the guards and launches an attack on them. He launches a meteor on them which bursts the ground. The attack was so deadly that all the guards were no longer to be found. Eve was amazed to see the real power of Lord Astaroth. Moreover, Lord Astaroth commands Eve to send out the wood golems to the castle precinct. And he adds that, don't give them any complicated instructions, they won't be able to remember them anyway. Just tell them to go on a rampage. He furthermore commands to confuse the castle guards and use the golems to aggro them, and then Lord Astaroth will use that as a distraction to send the orcs to plunder every single thing inside their treasury. Moreover, the castle guards were fully alerted, and one guard commanded the other one to report the attack back to Sabnox-sama immediately. The wood golems were fiercely attacking the guards. They finally did it. All the forces were attacked, even though the golems' attack certainly was powerful. It seems like they can't win against these numbers. Thus, now the skeletons were ready to launch their attacks. The battlefield got more intense and fierce when the castle guards were attacking the skeletons. The warfare was bloody. When Eve reported back with the location of the treasury, which was based on the information that the slimes gathered, they could reach the treasury in 5 minutes. Therefore, Lord Astaroth instructed Eve that he will take care of everything on the battlefield. She shall head for the treasury right away, and he will leave it to her to lead the orcs. At last, they will regroup at the forest after everything is done. The battlefield was full of chaos and bloodshed. All the forces were fighting dreadfully. As 30 minutes passed, Lord Astaroth thought that Eve might have retreated as well, so he commands his troops to retreat too. Therefore, now the troops were retreating. Lord Astaroth asks the troops to get out of here before the keeper returns, as Eve was waiting for them. Eve was waiting in the forest with the carriage to head back. Thus, the troops along with Lord Astaroth were back. But it seemed like Lord Astaroth was extremely hurt, and this instantly worried Eve to her core as she felt the need to cure his master immediately. She could not see him in agony, but she was happy that Lord Astaroth returned safely, as she tightly hugged him. Moreover, they had finished loading their spoils of war inside the carriage, so Eve asked Lord Astaroth to take a look at it once. However, now the problem was that they won't be able to fit all of it in here on the way home, and suddenly there was a strange tool. So Lord Astaroth asks Eve about what that tool is. As he touched it, he felt a sense of unease. It felt so bizarre, it felt as if this thing is not of this world. Eve already knew that Lord Astaroth would inspect this piece before anybody else. It looked like that sword is one of the otherworldly artifacts. Very rarely do they end up in this world. It was a drifted item, but no one knew about what was the true nature of this bizarre sword. Moreover, it was time for both of them to celebrate as their surprise attack on the Sabnox castle was wonderfully executed. And although after all the beating that he had delivered to his castle, it was too bad that he could not see his expressions. Moreover, no, he wanted to start building the walls and bolster their defenses before that guy comes to attack them. But first things first, they needed to get more soldiers. Lord Astaroth knew that Sabnox's army consisted of beast monsters, which meant that he had to summon something more powerful than that. The beast monsters are quick-witted and strong. They are basically monsters that rely on physical power, so things like ghosts and wraiths that nullify any physical attack would be effective against them. Furthermore, then they bring out the drifted item, the bizarre sword. Although it is very rare that objects from another world get transported into this world from time to time, these objects are called drifted items. Some of them even possess enormous power, hence, owning this item will grant Lord Astaroth ruler status. This drifted sword's voice from another word. Just like him, Lord Astaroth always wondered if that's the reason why the sword draws him in so much. Lord Astaroth thought it is a Japanese sword, a samurai weapon that he had seen in his previous world. He had recklessly tried making it a few times in the past, but would fail every time. But still, although the Japanese word is strong, he only had one word here. It would be a whole different story if he could mass produce an arm, his soldiers with the Japanese sword. Moreover, he asks Eve if he could use this sword as a summoning material, but Eve added that this summoning had to be different. It was not like the common summoning. He can call it the spirit of the owner of the drifted item and do a spirit summoning. Eve furthermore added that it can even summon a powerful hero spirit from another world as such. There are many cases when it summons spirits stronger than the summoner, but some of those spirits are so powerful that they would even kill their own summoners. Lord Astaroth believed that if those spirits went against him, it would just mean that this is all his worth as a demon lord, as he added that if he cannot even take control of a single hero, then there is no way that he can take control of the world. This statement came as a shock to Eve as there were suddenly lightning bolts all across the sky. They came from the summoning of a spirit. It emits such a divine aura, not like when he summons normal monsters, but this was the spirit summoning, and then the spirit is the owner of the drifted item. Thus the spirit was summoned. It was a tall man who stood across Eve and Lord Astaroth. Moreover, Lord Astaroth starts by asking him to introduce himself. His name was Toshizu, Hijikata Toshizu. He would have been killed in Hakadate Goryokaku in the other world. Moreover, he looks at Lord Astaroth and asks him if he was the one who called him here after having a slight conversation with Toshizu. Lord Astaroth realized that similar thing was happening with Toshizu which happened to him. All the information was being stuffed into his brain. It was a revelation from God, or it may also be called the reincarnation. It is a duty that has been given to him by the gods. Hijikata Toshizu was to be Lord Astaroth's sword. Hijikata Toshizu stood there listening to Lord Astaroth, thinking that all the things he was mentioning about reincarnation were pretty convincing, and that he was just like Kondu-san. Moreover, Hijikata Toshizu proposed that Lord Astaroth could prepare a place for him to die. Then he will happily lend him his power, but first, Lord Astaroth first wanted to test his powers and guts first, and thus they both have a face-off. When Hijikata Toshizu compliments Lord Astaroth that his courage is befitting for the King of Kings. After hearing this, Astaroth adds that if he cannot earn the trust from even a single samurai here, then ruling the world will be just a pipe dream for him. Toshizo was very fond of Astaroth thinking, and now he was sure that Lord Astaroth would not cut him down. Moreover, Lord Astaroth also adds that first of all, there was no killing intent from what he could see. There was his own self-loathing, and that Toshizu is only looking for a place to die, so there is no way he would kill the king, who would bring him to a lot of exciting places. And then as Eve was about to put a knife on the back of Toshizu, he immediately noticed her killing intent, to which Toshizu replies that he did notice the intent, because it would be pathetic for the manslayer Toshizu to meet his end by being stabbed from behind by a girl. Lord Astaroth came to the conclusion that Toshizu is a man worthy of the drifted sword's dedication. Moreover, Toshizu introduces himself again as he takes off his hat. He adds, "I am Hijikata Toshizu, a farmer hailing from Tama area, Musashi province of the land of the rising sun. And although he is a Nihonzashi samurai, I am originally a son of farmers. Please use me as an expendable object." After hearing everything Toshizu said, Lord Astaroth added that he would, as he knows that acquiring a samurai as skilled as him is harder than acquiring gold. Hence, Astaroth promised to prepare a place for him to die eventually, but he will not let him die that fast, and thus they both have got themselves a deal. Furthermore, the next morning, Hijikata Toshizu was observing the military activities happening in the castle, when an orc calls Toshizu, asking him if he wants to play hooky. This angers Toshizu, and he starts calling the orc a pig and threatening to beat him up. Lord Astaroth and Eve were observing everything from afar when they were talking about how Toshizu can turn these orcs who love to play hooky into great soldiers in a few weeks. It would also be great if their habit of stealing things can also be fixed, but that is only possible if they have a future. But now the current headache was Satnok. As Lord Astaroth had shamed him, he would attack back any time as they had launched a surprise attack on his castle and dropped his treasury. Although his soldiers must be tired from the fighting against Earl Ismaria, he still has his pride. If he doesn't come attack us soon, his soldiers would look down on him. Lord Astaroth agreed with Eve as he indeed is a prideful person. Satnok is a demon lord who relies on military prowess, so he has no other choice but to do that, which meant that they should use that against him. Now Eve highlighted another question, that if they are going to fortify themselves here and repel them off as they have constructed the wall, so that might be a good idea, but it would be boring if they just hold themselves in this castle. So Lord Astaroth proposes a plan that they should beat them, weaken them, and then strike them when they are at their weakest. Hence, that's not bad at all. However, Toshizu added that there is one flaw in this plan. When an army is divided into 2 squads, then 2 commanders will be required. So Lord Astaroth suggests that the 2 commanders could be him and Toshizu. It seemed like that Lord Astaroth put a lot of trust in Hijikata Toshizu, as Toshizu jokes around that he might betray Lord Astaroth in the climax of the battle. To which Lord Astaroth adds that it would be his loss in that regard, as he doesn't care about losing but asks Toshizu if he has a plan B. Lord Astaroth kept trying to think of one, but nothing good came out of it, and he was worried and asked Toshizu not to betray him, because if he did, it would be the end of him if Toshizu betrays him. Toshizo suddenly realized that Lord Astaroth made this plan assuming that he will help them. Toshizo believed that this all is just plain madness, to which Lord Astaroth added that it has been plain madness from the start, since he is just a newborn demon lord. Originally, he should have bowed down and sling praise to that Savnak, and as he had started a war against that kind of person, so a frontal attack is not an option. Toshizu added that it was very obvious that Lord Astaroth did not trust him, but it looked like at this point he had no other choice but to rely on him. Hence now the last question of Toshizu was that if Lord Astaroth was really going to prepare a best place for him to die. So Lord Astaroth tells him that in the other world, in this place called Hakode, it seems that Toshizu was killed after being showered by bullets. He had also heard that the army of the new government was less than 10,000 men. So Toshizu replies that in his case he can prepare him a more epic and magnificent battleground. It would be a great battle that will divide this world into 2, a great battle that will leave a mark in the history of this world. Take the command, and rather than shower it with 10,000 bullets, go and shower in 100,000 arrows, said Lord Astaroth. As Toshizu heard 100,000 arrows, he believed that Lord Astaroth is just exaggerating. But he also believed that Astaroth's breadth of mind is bigger than Enomoto-san or Kondo-san. He is either a great king or a great trickster. Lord Astaroth chose the term Great King for himself. Toshizo believed that Lord Astaroth is an interesting man. Toshizo is a kind of person who betrays the general he does not like. But if Lord Astaroth is alright with that, only then he will be ready to command a squad. Hence Toshizo for now was ready to place his bets on Lord Astaroth's big talks. Therefore, Astaroth promises that he will not disappoint him. On the other hand, in a dire spot surrounded by the beast demon army, it was the Lion King of Savnak Kingdom. The Lion King was extremely furious at the doings of Lord Astaroth as he tricked him, and now he had heard that Lord Astaroth has been screwing around. The Lion King was determined to get payback from Lord Astaroth for the humiliation he caused him. On the contrary, Lord Astaroth was also devising a plan for the counterattack. It seems that he will use all his military strength to attack Lord Astaroth right from the start. If Lord Astaroth had the manpower, he would divide his army into 3 squads and launch a surprise attack on his castle, just like he did before. But unfortunately, he does not have enough power to defend this castle too. They only have under 100 soldiers in total. Savnak's main army is about 200 kobolds. Therefore, if they look at numbers, Lord Astaroth is totally at a disadvantage, but it all depends on how the war progresses. Thus, Savnak's army had already launched an attack on the castle as the beasts were throwing arrows. Both the armies were fearlessly encountering each other. The skeletons and orcs were keeping the beast armies on their toes. However, as expected of kobolds, they can quickly adapt to overcome difficulties. But Lord Astaroth was content, as he also had something else planned out. Now in the battlefield had entered Ghost Wraith. They had physical invincibility, death, hex magic. They were the perfect option for encountering the beasts. But the Ghost Race Wraith renders all physical attacks useless. However, there are a lot of monsters that can only be affected by magic. Therefore, they still have that strategy left. Furthermore, compared to the Savnak army that mainly consists of kobolds monsters, the army consists of many kinds of monsters. Although their combat prowess is small, they can adapt to all kinds of conditions. The Demon King was about to attack the Wraith, and the sword he had was augmented with magic, which is definitely expected of a Demon King. Simple tricks will not work on him. Suddenly, Lord Astaroth was leaving the battlefield, so Eve asks him where he is going. He tells her that he is going to launch a counterattack in order to intercept the army, because at this rate, they will all be flooding into this throne room to destroy the core. Hence, now he was going to take command of the army himself. The same thing he did in his first battle, and that battle went okay because Sabnok's castle defense was weak at that time, but that is not the case now. Lord Astaroth believed that if he gathered his army, he should be able to kill Sabnok. Eve, on the other hand, was extremely worried that she thought his plan was not going to work. But Lord Astaroth believed that even though all of them are monsters, they are still his subordinates. He wants to minimize the death as much as possible. Lord Astaroth, judging from Eve's reaction, asked her if she believed that he is weaker than that Sabnok. Eve was not happy when she heard that argument coming out of Sabnok's mouth. Lord Astaroth believes that if it's just to win, there are a lot of ways to achieve that, but the battle will continue even after they defeat Sabnok. Hence, if it's possible, he just wants to win with the least amount of sacrifices. Hence, Lord Astaroth decides to take command of the soldiers which were left behind. However, in the battlefield, Sabnok Demon King was furiously fighting off all the monsters, demanding Lord Astaroth to come out and show his face. Thus Lord Astaroth shows up and thanks Sabnok-sama for coming all the way. Sabnok-sama was surprised to see Astaroth for the first time as they both make each other's acquaintance. According to the reports of Sabnok-sama's subordinates, Lord Astaroth is a magic user with a slender and frail build. Sabnok-sama believed that the description fit him perfectly. They both were facing each other. Sabnok-sama had a huge slandering sword in his hand as he yelled at Lord Astaroth, saying, "You stepped on my pride." He added that he was manipulated by him and set up to fight those humans, and while they were busy fighting them, he sneaked and robbed his treasury. He fiercely added that you're just a coward who can only rely on cheap tricks, to which Lord Astaroth replied that he did ask Sabnok-sama to protect him, but it's not like he had always signed anything that compels him to be Sabnok-sama's vassal. Moreover, Lord Astaroth also added that Sabnok-sama thinks he can do whatever he likes just because his promise isn't written on paper. All of this does make Lord Astaroth look like a villain. He points his sword at Sabnok-sama's heart, saying that there is no other way to talk this out but fight. Sabnok-sama believed that Lord Astaroth was going to resolve this by giving a death penalty. But Lord Astaroth was confident that he was going to be the one who wins. Sabnok-sama was furious that how can someone who uses a sword like Lord Astaroth can win against him. The battle was turning furious as both the Demon Kings were fighting. Lord Astaroth used his magic against the Lion King, but it seemed to have failed at first, but the fight kept getting intense with every attack from both leaders. Lord Astaroth calls Sabnok-sama a fast cat. He was angered by this statement even more, saying that he is a Lion King, not a cat. Suddenly, Lord Astaroth's army started showering arrows on the Lion King, but he was still unstoppable. As the orcs were throwing arrows at him, he was unbothered as he believed that orcs are nothing in front of him. Sabnok-sama was amazed to see that Lord Astaroth was taking this easy, as if his victory was already certain. It seems that he's just buying time, but in this scenario, no one knew who was getting more advantage. Moreover, Sabnok-sama mentioned that the moat of this castle is pretty good, although it is made in a hurry, but it's not like it covers all sides of this castle. The flag of the castle is wide open, and thus the report from his scout was correct. A scout is a one-time use magic tool. Sabnok-sama at this point knew all the weaknesses. Hence, Sabnok-sama threatened Lord Astaroth that he is sure that it won't take long before his soldiers come storming into Lord Astaroth. They will be there to destroy his core. But Lord Astaroth was not scared of the threats at all, as he said that it seemed like the after effects of the blinding light are preventing Sabnok-sama from seeing words in front of him, and thus he prepares another attack to show him the reality of his power. As Lord Astaroth strikes at Sabnok-sama, a huge pit in the ground was created, which had promised the defeat of Sabnok-sama. So Lord Astaroth gives him a choice. As he was tricked by him, he lost his treasury, lost the battle for his revenge, and now there is no one obeying him anymore. In order for him to take back his dignity as a king, he only had one choice. The choice was to cut off the samurai's head. He had no other choice than that. Thus Toshizu entered. He was so pleased that his demon lord did tell him that he had prepared a great place for him to die. But he never thought that he prepared such a glorious battle for his first assignment. Lord Astaroth already told Toshizu that he won't be bored if he obeyed him. But this is not his place to die. Hence Toshizu also agreed with Lord Astaroth, as he won't be able to show his face to Kanda-san in the afterlife if he gets defeated by a cat. Toshizu takes out the drift sword, as Sabnok-sama saw that sword from his treasury. He was angered to his core. Toshizu tells him that this was his sword, Azlamin Okami Kanasada. It was the sword which was used to summon him. However, Satnok-sama added that he is the original owner of this sword, and Lord Astaroth stole it from him. Hence he tries to hypnotize Toshizu, saying that he is the one who is the original owner of this sword. Therefore, Toshizu should be obeying him, the Lion King. But Toshizu does not care about that and adds that the one that he recognizes as his king is Astaroth, not Satnok-sama, who let it rust in his treasury. And thus now Toshizu was ready for action and showing Satnok-sama that this sword is no decoration. The battlefield was fully deserted, and all the forces had vacated the premises, except for the demon king of the Satnok kingdom, Satnok-sama, and samurai Hijikata Toshizu. They both were indulged in heady combat, striking at each other with their swords. The dreadful battle continued. Satnok-sama was amazed by the sword stolen from his treasury. During the fight, he thought that this fight had been encountering him for long. This is what to be expected of a drifted item. He yet again tried to offer a ceasefire to Toshizu by saying that he is ready to forgive them and let it slide, but by the looks of it, it was too late for a ceasefire now. Toshizu asks Satnok-sama about how he liked the taste of the sword which he let rust in his treasury for years. Satnok-sama was furious to his core as he asked Toshizu to stop messing with him. As they both continued to fight, Satnok-sama had a huge crystal in his hand. When Lord Astaroth saw the crystal, he immediately yelled at Hijikata Toshizu to get back and retreat, as this crystal was not like the one he used earlier for blinding lights. Satnok-sama crushed the crystal in his hand to launch an attack on Toshizu. It was totally out of the blue for the samurai as he was looking at the crystal. Satnok-sama yells, "Weakling human." The crystal caused a huge outbreak. There was fire everywhere. It came as a dire surprise to Lord Astaroth as he had no idea about the crystal. Satnok-sama was using this crystal for summoning. It seemed like it was only one, so Lord Astaroth commands Toshizu to hang on in there as a siren-like creature was coming out of it. There was smoke everywhere, making it difficult for Toshizu to breathe as he fell to the ground and started coughing. Therefore, Lord Astaroth came running towards him to help him. However, with the help of the crystal, Satnok-sama seemed more powerful than ever as he became more huge. Thus he started running towards Toshizu with his sword to launch again, and that is when something unexpected happened. Lord Astaroth stood in front of Toshizu and put his hand on Satnok-sama's sword to stop him, which triggered Satnok-sama even more as he was roaring with anger. Satnok-sama was shocked that the impossible had happened. How did Lord Astaroth stop his sword with his bare hand? The demon king Astaroth replied that he might be strong, but his movements are still monotonous. This enrages the Lion King as he calls him a lowly mage, to which Astaroth questions him about what rank does it make him to be defeated by a lowly one. As he finishes his sentence, the Lion King is engulfed in flames, marking his defeat. It is as prophesied, Astaroth must seek his next revelation. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, a girl named Jean Dark is pondering about the burden of her duties to save her country as the demon lord who brings harmony between good and evil. Moreover, on the other hand, in Lord Astaroth's castle, everyone was celebrating his first victory. Eve went running to Lord Astaroth to congratulate him for his victory, as she tells him that he is one hell of a lord as he stole a dwell from her. But it was her fault for being taken by surprise back there, and she thanked him for saving her life. Furthermore, she was impressed by the monstrous power of Lord Astaroth, and she realized that there is no need for her to protect him as he can protect himself on his own. But Lord Astaroth added that this is not true, since it is a violation of the art of war for the lord to come out by himself to the battleground. He would rather want to leave it to his subordinates as soon as possible, because he would prefer to stay inside his castle while formulating a smart plan. Eve was mesmerized by Lord Astaroth as she asks him if he was a schemer, but Lord Astaroth asked her to call him a realist as he was calmly analyzing the victory without a shred of arrogance. But Eve was glad that her master was safe and sound. Moreover, it had been a few weeks since Eve vowed her allegiance to the demon Lord Astaroth. She was writing in her diary in the study. In the diary, she mentioned that all the hustle and bustle from the war had died down, and a short time of peace finally came to Astaroth's castle. She was summoned here to support the demon lord, who lacks knowledge of this world. Her life has been full of surprises since the moment she was summoned. Although Lord Astaroth had no knowledge of this world, he was able to adapt himself in no time. He had that calmness, as if he has already spent his whole life living in this world. His grateful parents captivate all the demon girls who lit inside the castle, especially for the succubus. Moreover, as she was catching those girls outside his room, she would get furious and tell them that she found a vile presence in here. There was no end to demon girls aiming to be his mistress. She would send all of those girls back to their room, protecting her master's chastity, and then for the idea that they really have to increase the security around the Lord's Astaroth sleeping chamber. However, on the other side, the most surprising thing about Lord Astaroth is resourcefulness. The demon Lord Astaroth is the weakest among the 72 demon lords, but he was able to climb up from the last place in just 1 week. He attacked the treasury of enabling demon lord and greatly expanded his army in one go. First, he pretended to swear allegiance to Earl Ismaria of the neighboring country, and then he pretended to sever allegiance to the demon lord Savnok and asked for his help, and then he suddenly launched a surprise attack on Savnok's castle while they were fighting each other. Furthermore, after that, Savnok was filled with anger and launched a counterattack, but Lord Astaroth was able to repel it and even kill him in that battle. Eve wondered if there is a demon lord other than Lord Astaroth who was able to kill another demon lord in just 1 month after he was born into the world. Even Eve, whom people called the Walking Database, has no record of such a demon lord other than Lord Astaroth. Moreover, Lord Astaroth immediately moved to the next step after he defeated Savnok. He sent his squad to take control of Savnok's castle and take all the resources and treasures from there, and then they dismantled the castle. Whenever one takes another castle, it becomes their pride, and they tend to want to protect it. But Lord Astaroth was different. He believed that he could not protect 2 castles with his current power, and he would hate it if another demon lord or human kingdom takes control of it. There were even monsters who were complaining about this, but Lord Astaroth was able to perfectly convince them. However, what Lord Astaroth wanted was not castles or cities. He wanted the real resources, which he believed were the people who were living there. Therefore, this was why he was taking in all the people living around Savnok's castle. On the contrary, there are a lot of races like demons, humans, demi-humans, or beastmen who are living in different demon lord cells. They live in a predetermined social class and are squeezed by the demon lord of that castle. Especially for the people captured from other cities or cases, they usually will be taken as slaves or even as tools, but Lord Astaroth decided that the people he took in will be put in the same class as his own people. Therefore, in other words, there was not even a single slave around the demon Lord Astaroth's castle. Even among the 72 demon lords, this was a unique case. This kind of thing never happened, even among the human nations. It was because Lord Astaroth did not like the idea of slavery. So Eve asks her master why he did not like slavery, to which Lord Astaroth replies that he thinks that this is not a good concept. Although they all are just villagers, this castle is actually running on the tax that is collected from them. Eve believed that he did not like slavery because he wanted to get the maximum tax, but this was not the real reason. The actual reason was that there was slavery in the previous world where he lived, but the slaves had low efficiency. No matter how hard they worked, they only got paid the same amount of money, which is why they would not give their best to working hard. Lord Astaroth believed that he might be eating off from their hard work, but even so, they continued to strive hard. Lord Astaroth believes that it is his duty to provide them with an easy working environment. Therefore, after hearing all this, Eve told Lord Astaroth that in order to bring this ideology to fruition, Eve wanted to spend all her life serving Lord Astaroth as she brought him tea. Thus, this concludes a brief report on the everyday life of the castle, and now they were on to their next battle. In a memory of his past life, Ashtarot remembers taking a nap on his researching desk, but then his father enters the room and lets out a sigh upon looking at Ashtarot's tired state. His father then wakes him up, to which Ashtarot reacts shockingly. Now in present time, this makes Ashtarot a bit sad as he sits on his chair without saying anything. Later, Eve points out that after defeating Savnok in his castle, taking over his people resulted in a new problem of overpopulation in the city, to which Ashtarot worryingly suggests that they should give those people jobs and a place to stay at. However, Eve gives off a look of disapproval which tells him that she wants to expand the army instead, with her reason being that they lost so many troops in the last battle and now they need to grow their army again. But Ashtarot says that his people's lives are his priority. To add to it, he says that having a strong group of people in his city will provide him with strong mercenaries at the center of his army, and not just dumb monsters. Irritated, Eve screams that the human soldiers will have to be paid for, and they cannot be trusted, which is why other demon lords just use them as throwaway soldiers to protect the barrier troops. Ashtarot and Eve are in disagreement, to which then he asks Eve if she trusts the slave boy even though she spends so much time with him. Eve then gives a sad and confused look at this question and remembers the happy and enjoyable time she has spent with that slave boy, holding her heart. Ashtaroth then tells her that even he was once human, suggesting that she trusts him too, and so they need to build a city that provides the mercenaries safety to gain their trust. He also says that no one can judge the true nature of any race until they see it for themselves, which also calms Eve down. After this, he tells her to spend the resources and treasures they have on the development of the city to create facilities, and some to the wandering mercenaries. Then he says that he is thinking of changing the layout of the city as it is not good for economic growth because it is built like a defense system against attacks from enemies. This will allow them to build more infrastructure and easy transportation like in Japan, which makes Eve wonder if this decision of his comes from him being a demon lord or the fact that he was human before. Suddenly, Hejikta asks Ashtaroth to build a brothel, a place where people go to feel pleasure and talk to women. And Ashtaroth gives in to his desires as a fellow man and agrees to it. This makes Eve angry at Ashtaroth as she was already going to build such a place filled with brothels, but she furiously tells Ashtaroth that she doesn't want him to go to those places, and she also dislikes the fact that he was enjoying talking about it. She offers herself to him instead, but after a moment of silence, they go back to talking about training their soldiers, and Ashtaroth thinks to himself that dealing with women is hard as Eve is screaming at him. Then they finally finish the design for the city development, so that it is able to hold a few thousand people, and now they can rely on taxation for their funding. But the problem is that there are no proper builders in the city, and this process needs at least 6 months. Eve then says that no one is applying for the job that they offered, which is of no surprise to Ashtaroth as he knows this is a new city. But then Eve suggests to hire dwarves as they are famous for amazing building skills, and they also are not under any other demon king. However, she warns Ashtaroth that the dwarves have dangerous rumors about them and it will be hard to convince them. To which Ashtaroth says that he will personally go and talk to them. This irritates Eve, but she also excitedly shows Ashtaroth the bag she had already packed for this journey as she knew he was going to go himself, but she will also join him. She then points out a million reasons why Ashtaroth cannot go alone as he is not able to even cook or do his laundry, which the goblins also not do. When Ashtaroth agrees to taking Eve with him, she feels delightful and immediately suggests to bring some skilled humans with them onto this journey, along with a few monsters to protect Ashtaroth, but not so much as to show hostility. This puts a smile on Ashtaroth's face, and he also puts Hijikata in charge of protecting the castle. Then they put out an announcement in the city to hire good military officers, and the people start to gather around wondering if they should take the offer. And between them is a small, secretive girl wearing a hood. A few days later, almost 100 people gather for auditions, including that small girl, about whom Ashtaroth and Eve are doubtful, but the sword that the girl carries catches his eyes, followed by a brute harassing her by touching her butt. This makes another guy in the crowd angry at the brute, which starts a fight, and as Ashtaroth moves to stop that fight, Hijikata stops him saying that this problem is small for a general and steps to stop it himself. But then the small girl starts a countdown from 5. As soon as the brute is about to swing his axe, Hijikata gets ready to draw his sword, but before he could, the small girl rushes forward and slices the axe of the brute cleanly, which leaves everyone in a state of shock and causes the brute to furiously rush her, after crushing the remaining wooden handle in his hands, but is immediately embarrassed by the little girl when she cuts at his pants, leaving him half naked in front of a crowd who laughs at the brute and praises the girl for how good she is, and the brute runs away. Though this leaves Ashtaroth, Eve, and Hejikta speechless, making them praise her swordsmanship and wonder about who she might be. Then the little girl turns toward Ashtaroth, meets his eyes and smiles, followed by a kneel out of respect for Ashtaroth, claiming how he has a good heart and enormous hidden power. Ashtaroth asks her what he should call her, to which she replies that her name is Jean, a swordswoman from the otherworld kingdom called France, and she received a prophecy that her master will appear in front of her after that brute touched her butt, as she lives by the sword and gave her chastity to the god. Confronted by the demons and zombie dwarves, Ashtaroth calls them the owner of this land, but Jean tells him that someone attacked the dwarves' village and turned them into zombie, followed by a sad prayer for them. Ashtaroth then tells them the plan of attack, which is to interrogate the demons first and then kill them after, while the demons look at them with bad intent. As Ashtaroth creates crystals through his powers to attack the 2 demons and 10 zombies, he wants to finish this battle quickly so that Eve does not get harmed and attacks the demons right away. The crystal struck the wing of one of the demons and also kills plenty of the dwarves, but there are still a few of them left. So Ashtaroth tells Eve to hide somewhere safe as he takes flight. Ashtaroth observes that dwarves that got hit in the head stop moving, but not the ones who got hit in other places, which confirms the research he did back in his human life, which leads him to thinking that the demons must be the ones who controlled the dwarves, and they might have answers if questioned. He then suddenly turns towards Jean battling the zombies, slashing them on the ground, but quickly warns her that she might get infected if bitten, so she should be careful. Despite this, she gets bitten but on her armor by a dwarf that jumped from behind, which makes Jean angry as she throws the dwarf in a wall using the strong grip of that dwarf's bite and slashes his face in half using her sword. Although Ashtaroth then warns Jean that the zombie dwarves react to sound, so she should not cause much noise as most must still be hiding in their homes, Jean sees the demon with the broken wing trying to fly away to escape, and she jumps high enough to reach the demon and slash off its other wing, causing it to crashing in the ground all injured. Eve then compliments Jean's act as to how she stopped the demon from escaping. And then Ashtaroth, determined, walks towards the demon to question it, while telling Eve to stay hidden until everything is finished. Ashtaroth wonders if the demons understand the common language of this world and asks it a question in that language, to which the demon immediately replies and tells Ashtaroth that they are the demon Lord Elagos' servants and they will be taking over the dwarves' village. This leaves Ashtaroth on shock with the name of Demon Lord Elagos on his mind. Ashtaroth immediately questions the cruel ways of the demons taking over the village, as they simply destroyed and controlled it, to which the demon replies that they zombified ones who fought back through the power of necromancer Shartal Sama, and now the dwarves cannot fight back. Ashtaroth grits his teeth in anger because he had to kill innocent dwarves, and charges up a magic spell to attack with while asking the demon information about Elagos and Shartal, which startles the demon. Suddenly, Jean comes running towards them screaming that she is done with her job with the other demon's head on her sword. Seeing that, Ashtaroth asks the demon if he will now listen to him as it is the only one left, regardless of whether it will live or die, but the demon instantly tries to flee from there. Ashtaroth then calls it an unfortunate event and casts his freeze spell on the demon mid-air, trapping it in an ice crystal which comes smashing down on the ground. Jean innocently asks Ashtaroth if he is the strongest mage or something. Eve sees all of this and comes out to regroup with the party, but is suddenly caught by surprise when a zombie dwarf approaches her from behind, which scares her as she runs into the arms of Ashtaroth to seek protection, and Jean also gets ready to protect right away. Ashtaroth thinks to himself that he cannot deal with so many of the zombie dwarves as they get drawn out by the loud noise they cause due to their battle with the demons. He even thinks about using teleportation magic, but since he is not alone and needs to bring Eve and Jean with him, he cannot use it, as he worries that both of them will be caught by the zombie dwarves. Even when Ashtaroth uses his magic to quickly defeat the dwarves, more of them come out of hiding, which leaves them hopeless. Frustrated, Ashtaroth and the party retreats to one of the houses, hoping to stay in there to protect themselves while holding down the door so that the zombies cannot enter, calling this a situation like chess, but with infinite pawns attacking a queen, a king, and a bishop. With nowhere to go, Ashtaroth suggests that Jean should take Eve and run away while he distracts the zombies, but this idea is instantly turned down by both of the girls as they claim to not leave him behind and stay with him till the very end. During this panic, the dwarves now start to break into the house by smashing their fists through the windows and doors. Worryingly, Ashtaroth tries to come up with an idea that lets them get the upper hand over the big number of zombie dwarves, and is very desperate to get anything when suddenly one of the floorboards open up and a dwarf in a furry outfit and goggles comes out of it, telling Ashtaroth and party to come with him immediately as it is safe down there. Ashtaroth commands both girls to go with him when Jean takes Eve with her and jumps down. The dwarf tells Ashtaroth to go too while grabbing an explosive and throwing it towards the horde of zombies so that they can make an escape. In the underground area they jumped into, it is all dark and one cannot see, and Ashtaroth has his head resting since they cannot see. In a moment, the party reassures each other while Jean cries that it is too dark. Ashtaroth, in a thankful manner, realizes how close that was and thanks the dwarf, followed by a question as to why he saved them. The dwarf tells Ashtaroth that he was observing him and his party, so he knows they are strong enemies of Elagos, so they cannot die in a place like this. Then the dwarf introduces himself as Godrief, the head chief of the earthen dwarves, also saying that he will one day ask them to return the favor. Knowing they have met with the dwarf head chief, Jane happily tells him that they were looking for him, but the chief Godrieve tells her that with the village destroyed, there is nothing much he can do. Ashtaroth thinks to himself that if this escape route exists, then there might be more dwarves alive and their traveling was not wasted. The dwarf chief Godrieve looks at the party and realizes that there are two demons, Ashtaroth and Eve, but is puzzled to see a human, he assumes, Jean, with them. However, he is sure that they are the enemies of Elagos. Wary of the village chief's nature due to the rumors he has heard, Ashtaroth takes a pleasant approach in his speech and presents his thanks to the chief, along with introduction of the two ladies with him. He then tells the dwarf chief Godrieve his intentions of coming here, which was to rebuild his kingdom by gathering different races, and so he came to ask for the dwarves' help. Looking at this, Janie is shocked and in disbelief that Ashtaroth is talking in such a kind manner. Godrieve is untrusting of Ashtaroth as he is a demon lord, so he straight up asks him if he would enslave the races once they are done with their work of rebuilding, like the demon lord Elagos. Ashtaroth denies this and tells Godrieve that he wants different races to flourish together under his rule. Looking at Ashtaroth's kind approach, Godrieve tells him that he will be interested in working with them. But unfortunately, the village was destroyed by Elagos when he did a surprise attack on the village, killing many dwarves, and so the village chief Godrieve is unable to help. Ashtaroth then asks Godrieve about what kind of a demon lord Elagos is, so Godrieve tells him that Elagos is the master of the northern land, Duke of Hell who enjoys chaining people. He is very cruel and brutal, and turned all the dwarves into zombies with the help of Shartle, the necromancer, and now rules over them. Then Godrieve suggests moving in the tunnel towards two big openings with a railway track going into them, showing that it is a mine as the story is long. He then continues with the story that Elagos first came to buy metal in a peaceful manner and offered a generous payment, but later threatened them on the way by pointing his sword at them. Half of the village chief Godrieve's men were able to escape through the same underground tunnel they were currently in, as it is a dangerous labyrinth with traps on every corner. He then tells the party that food will be a problem, as they can get water through the underground water flowing, but since this place was for working, they never prepared to stay in here for many days, so they will have to get out time to time to get food, although the situation on the ground is dangerous. Ashtaroth questions the dwarf village chief Godrieve about how long they can last in this case, and whether there are any warrior dwarves with him, to which Godrieve answers that they can only last about 1 week, and since they are a peaceful tribe, no one really fights, but due to them being miners, they have tools, such as a pickaxe, strong enough to break a dragon's scale. Ashtaroth then gathers that in order to hire the dwarves for his kingdom, he has to defeat Shartle to free them from his control, otherwise this could take a lot of time. So he straightforwardly asks Godrieve if he will serve under him to fight against Shartle, and Eve nods in agreement. Godrieve is stunned at first, but Ashtaroth makes him realize that their goals are the same and that they will have to fight Elagos one way or another. So it is better to unite against Shartle, and once they win, Godrieve and the dwarf village can help him with his request. Though Ashtaroth is already thinking of going another way about this situation if Godrieve refuses. Godrieve then praises Ashtaroth's fighting and agrees to help him in his goal if he is the one commanding, along with getting his people to help too, and if they don't, he will beat some sense into them and starts walking forward. Jean is shocked and Eve smiles at this great turn of events, and Ashtaroth follows Godrieve. But then Godrieve stops in between two pathways and confronts Ashtaroth. He asks him that he looks like a smart and wise person even as a demon lord, since he orders his men amazingly and knows how to defeat his opponents. He even mentions how Ashtaroth did not even hesitate to kill the zombified dwarves, and that is something Godrieve himself cannot do as they still resemble his family. As the light of the lantern burns fiercely, the mood in that cave turns serious, Jean and Eve bracing themselves. Godrieve asks Ashtaroth his intentions and feelings when he killed the zombie dwarves, or if he even felt anything as if they were just useless insects. Ashtaroth, as a realist, answers him with a troubled expression that those zombies were just empty shells, and they would just be ruining the lives of actual live people, and so they were better off dead than to be let free, even turning the question on Godrieve since he saved them exactly because he thinks the same. Though a hard pill to swallow, Godrieve accepts the answer and leads them into one of the entrances, saying that he finally sees the true nature of Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth then asks him what was in the other entrance, to which Godrieve replies saying that it was filled with deathly traps, and he would have sent them there if he did not trust them. And this makes Ashtaroth and his party internally angry at him. Then they finally get to the refuge after coming out of the underground tunnel, which is a very big space with the remaining people of the dwarf village. Godriv tells them that this was used by their ancestors to live. Jean sees some kids and immediately runs towards them to give them some food happily, and Eve is surprised to see such a kind act, so she gives her more to share, while also claiming that she did not think of Jean as someone who shares food, which annoys Jean. Ashtarot also plays with the baby who grabs his finger, which makes him smile a bit, but he quickly turns around to start a strategy meeting. However, Godriv grabs him and takes him to the cavern, a place to enjoy beer with friends. This annoys Jean as she is a saint and does not like alcohol, though Ashtarot tells her that the dwarves can hold their liquor so the strategy meeting is safe. Plus, it is a good way to have a deeper friendship with them. Godriv tells him that this is their tradition when going into a battle that can mean their death, and so they enjoy their day before. Ashtarot, though, is troubled by the fact that he still cannot hold his liquor as a demon lord. While drinking, Ashtarot asks Godriv how they clean and dry their clothes in such a place, and then Godriv tells him that they use different gases to do it, even asking him to sniff the clothes to make sure. But it was a trick to get Ashtarot to sniff his clothes, which smelled like alcohol. This gets Ashtarot mad, but in the next moment, he is reminded of his father through the cheerful smile of Godriv, who makes a comment on how Ashtarot is already drunk. In a sad expression, Ashtarot agrees and lowers his head. Looking at the city, Ashtarot claims that he could spend a long time here if there was a stable food supply. Godriv tells him that there used to be magic crystals in this mine that could create a sun in the mine. His ancestors used it as a way to get food, but it was lost a long time ago. This shocks Ashtarot as he remembers that Sapnok also used this. Godriv points to a cheerful Jean playing with children and tells Ashtarot that she told him that Ashtarot was a newly born demon lord, but he still is very skillful, which Ashtarot blows off as a bluff. He says that he only appears big so that no one realizes he is actually weak, because that they will attack him together. Godriv apologizes to Ashtarot as now he has to fight Elagos, but Ashtarot reassures him that they were going to cross paths anyways sooner or later. But this situation just brought they fight closer than he planned. Godriv then gets confirmation that the demon lords fighting and killing each other is just their fate. Godriv asks Ashtarot if he really has any dream of his own, other than the controlling the world as his fate as the demon lord, which makes Ashtarot think about it, and he suddenly remembers the goddess who brought him into this world as a demon lord, who also said the same thing, that controlling the world is just his goal and not his dream. Ashtarot then looks around. He says playful children of different races running around together, enjoying themselves, and he realizes that war always exists because of the selfish choices of adults, and it has nothing to do with the innocent children of any world. Then, with a sad and pitiful look, he says that he wishes to create a world where children can live peacefully, laugh and smile, as he and Godriv looks up at the dark ceiling of the underground city. Then the scene cuts to a bloody building with dead bodies all over, and a wizard-looking man with a big beard sitting on a large chair. He then makes the dead bodies alive and commands them to serve him Shartle until their bodies are completely destroyed. Finally, in the meeting room, all of the dwarves who can fight along with Ashtarot, Godriv, Eve, and Jean are gathered to talk about strategy against their fight with Shartle. Ashtarot tells the dwarves that if they do not want to fight or they do not believe on Ashtarot's leadership, then they should leave right now, but all of them stay put with determined looks and ready to go. Looking at this, Ashtarot continues his talks. Ashtarot then asks Godriv to show him the map of this tunnel, but one of the dwarves is against this as he says that the map is not for the outsiders to see, even if they have the highest command. Godriv reassures his men that Ashtarot has the fighting ability to fight Elagos' army, is kind enough to give his food to the little children, but his gentle eyes are really not that of a demon lord, though he did not hesitate to kill the walking dead bodies of the zombie dwarfs, thus telling everyone that Ashtarot is trustworthy, and this causes the dwarves to talk about of Ashtarot as the legendary demon lord. Ashtarot is confused after hearing this, and when Godriv describes the rumor of the legendary demon lord, Eve and Jean looks towards Ashtarot like they know for a fact that he is that demon lord since he matches everything said by Godriv. Ashtarot is still confused and worries about why both the girls are looking at him in such a way, so they explain to him that he perfectly matches all the description of the legendary demon lord, and both of them start to lovingly and tightly hug him, saying that their amazing demon lord is probably the one. They both have sparkles in their eyes, but Ashtarot is annoyed by how unusually happy they both are about this, wondering as if he is the only demon lord with black clothing. Ashtaroth disregards this as just a legend, but also reassures everyone present in the room that he truly wants to be a demon lord that they can trust, which makes everyone really happy about him. Godrieve and Ashtaroth look at the map of the tunnel to find strategic grounds for their battle when Ashtaroth points out a space which Godrieve tells him is a small digging tunnel with not much space, but Ashtaroth decides that that is where they will have their final battle against Shartle. Godrieve warns him that it is a dead end, plus Shartle's army has 100 troops, and that will result in more people dying. Ashtaroth tells him that he is not letting any more people die, so gather good miners and dig a hole in the small place they picked. Godrieve again warns him that Shartle will not fall for such an easy trick, but Ashtaroth and Eve get flashbacks on Sabnok, the demon lord. Ashtaroth then tells them to dig a hole to a specific point and strategically place explosives, with Godrieve coming to the correct conclusion of blowing every enemy in one place. Ashtaroth claims that even Shartle cannot escape this without heavy damages, but Godrieve counters that there will at least be a one-man sacrifice since the explosives will have to be lit on 2 different points while the entrance of the digging cave is closed. Ashtaroth again denies this and tells them that he will be the one lighting those explosives, which gives Eve and Jean a shock, and they again tightly hug Ashtaroth, convincing him of not putting himself in the danger. He shoves them off and tells them about his teleportation magic that can transport one person, so all they have to do is leave after blocking the entrance. But Eve still appears to be unconvinced, and Jean notices her, so she teases Eve with telling her to trust her man more, which annoys Eve, and she tells off Jean that she was also concerned just now, while Godrieve and Ashtaroth conclude their strategy meeting. Upon asking the time for when the hole will be dug up, Godrieve tells him that it will take 30 hours, but this raises concern that they were running out food and might not be able to hold on for that long, but Godrieve commands his men to work hard as even a demon lord is helping them, thus giving reassurance to Ashtaroth. Then they all get to work. Jean teaches the dwarves how to carry and use a sword, Eve helps the people living in this underground city, while Ashtaroth casts a spell on a rat to teleportation it to the enemy's lair and watches what goes on, but Jean thinks he is making some sort of food out of that rat. He observes some dead bodies walking in the lair through the rat's eyes, but Eve suddenly calls out to him and serves him a cup of tea while appreciating his work. She tells him that this herbal tea was given by the ladies on this place, which helps with stress, but Ashtaroth immediately after tells her about how he has to move up his plan since the enemy is making a move as well. Worryingly, Eve asks if this plan will really work, but Ashtaroth reassures her that he trusts the dwarves will get it done. However, as Eve is about to go and inform the dwarves, Ashtaroth notices her uneasiness and asks her what's wrong, and then she tells him her regrets of not being able to fight and protect her master, even though she was the first demon he summoned and named. She wishes she could fight like Hijikata and Jean and get rid of this bad feeling. Ashtaroth, surprised, hurries and takes out a lighter from his bag and asks Eve to hold it and light a fire in front of him using it. Eve is surprised but still grabs it, and Ashtaroth tells her that this was a tradition in a certain country called Japan, and it brings good luck to the person leaving. Hijikata told him this, and Ashtaroth told this to Eve with a smile. Amazed by this, Eve embarrassingly gets up and lights a small fire from the lighter, which makes a beautiful atmosphere around them in that dark underground city, while Ashtaroth gives off the same smile. Ashtaroth tells her that the sound of the lighter feels like a protection from bad luck, which makes Eve laugh a little, and then he pats Eve's head with passion and tells her that because he knows she will be worrying and wishing for him to come back safely, he will make sure to do so and would love the best tea Eve can ever make. This makes Eve very happy as she holds his hand in hers and accepts his conditions. After this touching moment, which makes them think this is a lover letting her husband go, Ashtaroth reminds Eve that the prophecy of Jean said that he will lose an important friend on this journey, and since Hijikata is not here, that leaves Eve, and that makes him worry about her more since he will be leaving her behind for the battle. Eve suddenly makes a very scared and shocked face, but Ashtaroth tells her that he will protect her with everything he has got, but it was actually Eve wondering why she got called a friend. Finally, on the battlefield, Jean and the army of dwarves await Shartle's army, who come at the exact time Ashtaroth told them they would, and also they were all zombies from many different races like he also told them before. They get prepared as it is now confirmed that it is Shartle's army, and begin their plan of luring them into the tunnel they planned. Two sides attack each other, with the zombies being much higher in number than Ashtaroth's army, but Ashtaroth skillfully uses his magic to kill the zombies in one strike on the head with his crystals from before. But Shartle then also realizes that it was the same magic as before, and immediately figures out that it was Ashtarot who killed them before, and so he sets his eyes on him as the next corpse he will use, no matter how damaged it is. Jean and Ashtarot realize that this the necromancer Shartle, and prepare to battle against him. Shartle, as he stares down Ashtarot and Jean, strokes his beard, mockingly tells them that he has never before controlled a wizard's dead body before, so he has no idea that we'll be able to use magic even after being dead. But it is worth trying. Jean is shocked to hear such evil words while Ashtarot stares him down. Suddenly, one of the demons flies towards Jean, but gets killed by her in one swing, and immediately after killing it, Jean says that she wants to have children with Ashtarot as he is a very capable fighter along with good looks and intelligence, which is why she cannot let him get kidnapped or controlled, leads to a moment of sudden silence. Ashtarot quickly tells her to hold her pureness within her, while at the same time praying to God that he does not tell Jean to have children with him, and neither does this news get to Eve, who would obviously be very angry at the thought, while Jean stays determined on the fact that if God wills it, she will. Shartle is surprised to hear that Ashtarot is a demon lord, who Jean constantly keeps praising, but Shartle denies the praises and calls him weak and lesser knows than Elagos. But regardless, Shartle stays put on the fact that he wants Ashtarot's body, even more since he is a demon lord, while Jean keeps getting shocked at every statement that involves keeping Ashtarot. A group of demons then fly towards them on Shartle's command to attack Ashtarot and his army of dwarves, so they make a retreat, making it look as natural as possible as they have already planned for this situation. Ashtarot also thinks that he has to teach the previous talked about stuff to Jean. As they are running towards the planned tunnel, one of the dwarves behind Ashtarot and Jean trips and fell over, and a demon then catches up to him with almost grabbing the dwarf in its claws. Ashtarot cannot do anything about it as there's not much time for reacting, but a battle ace suddenly flies towards the direction of the fallen dwarf and demon, which hits the demon on its head, killing it instantly. The axe was thrown by Godrieve, who is glad Ashtarot and team made it exactly on the time as they had said before, and Godrieve did the same. Now they all get together and start to lure the zombie army of Shartle, the necromancer, into the tunnel. Ashtarot narrates the plan once again that the dwarves will escape the tunnel from an escape route on the side of the tunnel after the army is dragged in the trap, while Ashtarot keeps the enemy busy, and will also set the explosives at the same time. After that, when he is the only one left, he will use his teleportation magic to escape while the enemy get trapped in that place with all the explosives. Godrieve worries that he does not want anyone to die in this place, so Ashtarot tells him that he need not to worry as Shartle is only interested in him. Then Shartle attacks Ashtarot and the dwarf army with flying rocks and his demons, but Ashtarot uses a protection spell and creates a barrier around him and his army which stops the flying rock spells, while the demons get stabbed to death by spears of the dwarves. Godrieve asks about the strategy phalanx that Ashtarot suggested to use against Shartle's army, to which Ashtarot replies with the story of Alexander the Conqueror used and is very good at it since this strategy works on unity of the army and increases the soldiers' motivation. As such, the dwarves, even though lacking in battle techniques, are most suitable for this as they also are strongly united with their own people. With everything going exactly as planned, Ashtarot thinks to himself that he just has to bring Shartle and his army a little more deeper in the tunnel for his plan to work, when Shartle decides to change his tactic for battle from straight brute strength to an evil scheme, using dead relatives of the dwarves who have been turned into zombies before, thus breaking the unity and resolve of the alive dwarves, which then leads to them easily getting bitten by the zombies and die since they are too shocked and frightened to fight their loved ones, even though they are dead and now turned into zombies. Ashtarot first realizes this technique of using dead relatives as Shartle's plan of attack, but was not sure if he really intentionally sent a brother of one of the dwarves who died until he saw the evil smile on Shartle's face. And so he knew that Shartle is sending relatives of the dwarf himself, and this angers Ashtarot. Ashtarot, annoyed, quickly kills the zombie brother of the dwarf and asks everyone to escape from the tunnel right this instant as they cannot hold on for much longer and the plan has to be complete right at this moment. While the dwarves' army is escaping, Ashtarot looks at the dwarf who just died and apologizes to the dead body as a regret since he told Godrieve that no one else will die, and then turns towards the massive army of Shartle, with Jean by his side leaving only the two of them there. Another zombie is cut in half with an axe and Godrieve shows up, telling the two of them that it is actually 3 people. This makes Jean and Ashtarot happy, But then Ashtarot asks both of them to buy some time for him because he needs it to activate his spell. However, Shartle catches on and is aware that they have planned some sort of attack, and so he fires a spell of his own towards Ashtarot while screaming his name as he really wants the body of a mage under his control. Ashtarot is confident that he can block this attack easily and creates a protective barrier again, but as soon as Shartle's spell struck his barrier, the barrier broke, leaving Ashtarot in a state of shock, and his barrier power is unable to reactivate. Shartle then tells him that this was his spell Dispel, which is another one of his abilities other than moving zombie corpses, which Ashtarot acknowledges in his mind that it was a good way to attack. But now, Ashtarot knows that he cannot cast his teleportation magic, nor he can set the explosives up, so he makes up his mind to at least avoid total defeat and asks Godriv to take Jean with him and escape, which Godriv immediately listened to, grabbing Jean by her collar while she screams that she wants to be with Ashtarot until the last minute. After they escape, Ashtarot thinks to himself that even though he is a realist, his human heart inside his demon lord body made him stay behind and protect his friends so that they can stay alive, and he does not care if people mock him. Ashtarot continues to fight the zombies and is relieved when the tunnel entrance suddenly closes with a huge blast. However, he hears Godriv's voice telling him to stay alive as the demon lord, to which Ashtarot turns to and sees Godriv in the entrance with him. Godriv then decides that it is better for an old man to die in this case, rather than a young demon lord who was just recently born. He then takes out two different kinds of magical crystals, one that is powerful to make a very big fire that is enough to spread throughout the cave, and the other is one used to teleport, which he plans on using on Ashtarot so he can escape before everything gets destroyed. Godriv tells Ashtarot that he thought of these as useless crystals before, and also he never thought of doing something like this before meeting the demon Lord Ashtarot. However, his feelings changed when he spent time with him, and so he requests Ashtarot to take care of his dwarves in his castle, and they will definitely be useful for him, all while Ashtarot is desperately trying to make him stop such an act. Godriv then throws the transportation crystal on Ashtarot, with his last words being prosperity for his brethren and calling Ashtarot his friend. In the blink of an eye, Ashtarot is then transported outside of the cave while calling out for Godriv, and Godriv finally using the fire crystal to create a huge fire, which then trigger the explosives and everything bursts in there. The sound of trembling and the explosion is heard in the underground city with Eve and the other refugees, when Ashtarot is suddenly spawned in front of Eve, to whom she calls out to in a confused and surprising tone, seeing such a look of horror on Ashtarot's face. In a flashbacks before the final battle against Shartle and his army, Godriv is shown to be commanding his army of dwarves to go to Ashtarot if he dies, since he is capable to guide the dwarves. In present time, after escaping Shartle and his army and trapping them in the cave, the dwarves give Ashtarot a bag that has the dwarf village chief Godriv's beard, as it is a tradition to give this kind of thing to a close friend. Ashtarot grabs the bag tightly in his hand and narrates that now they are fine for the time being, as Shartle and his army has stopped attacking them after their plan had succeeded. As for the dwarves, due to Godriv, their leader, commanding them to go with Ashtarot once the battle is over, went with him to his castle, even if some were hesitant to go with him, since the village they originally lived in was destroyed and was filled with zombie dwarves controlled by Shartle. As they reach the Demon King Ashtarot's castle, the dwarves are told of the rebuilding, but they all regretfully tell Ashtarot that the chief leader Godriv was the one who guided them on this architectural thing, and without him, they are good for maybe building a blueprint at best. All of them then get to thinking hard about this troublesome situation when Eve suggests to do the spirit summoning for this and shocks everyone. Her idea is to possibly summon Godriv as the spirit, since they can use an item of personal belonging from a person, even if it is not their dearest possession, which once again makes everyone, including Ashtarot, think about it. Then he grabs the bag with Godriv's bears in it and tells everyone that he is going to do it, but the preparations will take time, so everyone needs to be patient for it, while the dwarves are all hoping for a miracle. In his room, Ashtarot is standing alone when he places the bag with Godriv's beard down on his desk, while Jean asks Eve whether Ashtarot will actually go ahead with this plan, to which Eve replies with that he must, as Godriv is really important for their plan of rebuilding the city. Jean is still unconvinced, so Eve tells her that Master Ashtarot needs just a little bit of time. Meanwhile, Ashtarot is having a monologue about whether to proceed with this spirit summoning or not, as he knows that this is actually a good idea for everyone involved, including himself, as Godriv is his friend and such an important part of his plan. He knows that all it will take is to place the item in the summoning and pour his magical power, but it again reminds him of a mysterious figure who Ashtarot remembers as father, which makes him think back about his human life as he walks towards the summoning. He wonders how he died, and how bad of a son he was, since all he did was get too deep in research without worrying about anything else. Regretfully, he apologizes to his then father for dying first, crying his eyes out, wondering if this is the exact pain his father went through when he died, since he also lost such a dear friend in this life. Eve worryingly enters the room behind Ashtarot and asks about how he is doing, so then Ashtarot turns around determined and agrees to the summoning, which makes Eve smile. With a clear image in mind, and not just hoping for people with amazing skills, Ashtarot starts the summoning by throwing in the beard bat of Godrieve. Hoping that it will work, a sudden spark occurs and then smoke spreads with a shadowy figure inside it calling out to the demon lord Ashtarot. Eve and Ashtarot, at first, are happy to recognize that voice, but in the next moment are met with shock to see what stands before them. It is Godrieve, but with only his upper body, and for some reason, his lower body was in spirit form. Everyone is happy to see him back as he helps them in the construction of the new city and guides them about how to do things, but the fact that half of his body is missing annoys Ashtarot, Eve, and Hijikata since they wonder what went wrong, although all the steps of the summoning were correct. Hijikata asks Ashtarot of the kind of mistake he made, but Ashtarot is confused about it as well and questions all kinds of things that could have went wrong, like if his magical energy poured was too low, or he summoned Godrieve too quickly after he actually died, and this makes him quite depressed. Hijikata asks him about it, to which Ashtarot replies frustratingly that at least the main goal of getting a master builder to help in the construction of the new city was completed. Godrieve consoles Ashtarot that it is of no concern that he cannot fight in on the front line anymore, as it is more than enough that he can finally see his friends and family again, along with the help he can provide with construction, regardless of him being a floating soul, and this cheers Ashtarot up, unlike how he was beating himself up for the mistake a few moments ago. Immediately after this reassuring moment, Godrieve demands that the demon lord Ashtarot should also help on the construction and not just enjoy high cup of tea, since they will be needing a lot of strong builders and movers, so Ashtarot should summon a lot of them. Hearing this, Ashtarot commands Eve to use the big bones they got from the merchants and use them right away. Seeing at this wholesome sight, Jean thinks of Ashtarot and Godrieve as father and son, with a blooming smile on her face. And like that, the construction of the city under Ashtarot's castle started, with everyone helping in whatever way they could, but this also welcomed a new problem for Ashtarot, which was that he was locked up in his one room for a very long time ever since he picked up the job of assigning people their jobs and shifts throughout the construction process. Although he is getting used to this, he is also frustrated to not be able to do anything else, so he decides to take a stroll around the city at night, but covers himself with a black hood to not be recognized or spotted slacking off. Out in the city, Ashtarot is traveling in the market where he spots Eve shopping for dinner, so he decides to follow her secretly and see how well she gets along with the people of the city. Ashtarot is a bit worried about the differences between the many races that live in his city, even though they are not too big of a deal, but there are still some problems here and there. However, it is not as worse as the previous demon lord's system of power amongst the races, which cause all sorts of trouble. While Ashtarot is lost in his thoughts, Eve looks carefully at the food she wants to buy for dinner and asks a question to Ashtarot that whether he would like to eat meat or fish tonight, showing that she knew he was following her. Ashtarot asks Eve how she knew, so she jokingly tells him that she is able to pick out Master Ashtarot's presence even amongst thousands of people, but immediately takes it back by saying that she actually made the robe for disguise which Ashtarot was using. When Ashtarot was genuinely puzzled, she asks him why he is here, and he tells her that he wanted to see how the races are living with each other. So she invites him to the next shop where the different races gather a lot. Also, Ashtarot does a nice gesture of carrying the load by taking the basket Eve used for shopping, and this makes Eve happy and shy. She calls him a gentleman for doing such a gesture, but Ashtarot tells her that this was taught to him when he was young, and so he remembers. However, in the country Japan of another world, he says that guys would be used by girls in cruel ways, such as only being used for money, fame, and traveling, or otherwise just working long hours without rest. Eve listens to this and sympathizes with Ashtarot, and then grabs his arm in an affectionate manner, telling him that it is a good thing he got a life as a demon lord because they can get time to spend together. Ashtarot first thinks of stopping her, but realizes that he had worried her in the battle against Chartle before too, so he can let her do this for the time being. Suddenly, Ashtaroth feels an intense bloodlust from his surroundings from many directions, and so he gets worried if he is already surrounded before he can defend himself and Eve. Turns out they were just the jealous vendors in the shops nearby from Eve's shops regularly, and they did not like the fact that a guy was with her. They, because they like her, offer her some free sausages and sell her bacon, all while shifting between the lovely and scary personalities. Eve tells them that this is her master, and not a lover since she just serves him, although she also claims that their relationship is much deeper than that of lovers, which makes the vendors completely defeated. Then Eve and Ashtaroth walk away from there, while Ashtaroth presents his surprise over how famous Eve is with guys from all races. Eve tells him that Jean is even more famous as her holy aura is really charming, and she is able to bring the races much closer. Then Eve adds that this is all possible due to Ashtaroth's kindness and help. She uses the example of an apple being very cheap compared to other cities, and that is only possible due to many merchants coming to this city with a healthy competition, because the environment here is healthy, thus making everyone happy. She happily states that the future Ashtaroth wants to create may not be fat after all, which in turn makes Ashtaroth really happy. As the scene cuts to the underground tunnel that they blew up to defeat Shartle, the necromancer comes out from the rubble of rocks, all damaged and bleeding, while greedily calling out Ashtaroth's name since he is fixated on getting his body. As Ashtaroth gathers more people for his army, his castle grows even busier. He makes a remark that this many people has caused the temperature in this castle to rise, making it hot, but Eve shuts him down instantly, saying that it may be because of summer is close in time. While Ashtaroth is thinking about how much of a shut-in he was in his previous life, and even in this life that he does not even realize when seasons change, a small group of his orcs run towards him in worry and tell Eve the bad news as she can understand them. The bad news was that a messenger from the neighboring kingdom of Dysprosia has come to the castle to deliver some sort of news. Wondering why a kingdom as big as Dysprosia would send a messenger to them, they all seem a bit worried but also decide to listen him out in case it is anything important. The messenger, upon meeting Ashtaroth and his party, directly tells them that he is here to get help to fight the demon lord Elagos, and how there is a necromancer that is terrorizing the West and turning the people living there into zombies. This clicks in Ashtaroth's mind, and he immediately knows what the messenger is talking about. Ashtaroth tells the messenger that it is Charlat, the necromancer, whom they have already met and fought. The messenger tells a bit about who Charlat was. He was a royal mage in the kingdom of Dysprosia, but betrayed and killed his comrades during his time there, also getting into necromancy that was banned. Later, he escaped a day before his execution and was later found serving Elagos, the demon lord, by making zombies out of the many people Elagos has killed. The kingdom of Elagos is ruled by fear and death, but he, Shartle, crossed many lines by betraying the king of Dysprosia and playing with life and death, but the army he has created for Elagos is too dangerous to be fought by using a human army, so the messenger asks Ashtaroth for his help as he has a devoted and unified army under his command. Also, the praise of Ashtaroth defeating Savnok all by himself were also heard far and wide, so he will be a great addition to this alliance against Demon Lord Elagos. Ashtaroth is honored that the messenger praises his achievements, but quickly catches on the fact that Dysprosia's army is a lot bigger than that of Ashtaroth's, so them asking for their help for solely adding numbers is not the real reason. He figures out that the kingdom of Dysprosia knows about how he has defeated Shartle already, which shocks the messenger, seeing how quickly he understood their real intentions. As Ashtaroth suggests that he should be keen of other lords as well, and not just demon lords, the messenger diffuses the situation by telling him that it is also because of how kindly he treats humans, which surprises Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth then devises a plan that if Dysprosia attacks Elagos from the west, he might be able to sneak in and take over the castle. Then they decide that western area will be given to Dysprosia and the castle, and its resources would be given to Ashtaroth, and they shake hands on it. Hijikata then raises suspicions that while he has no problem with this deal, how can they be sure that they will not betray Ashtaroth? Of which Ashtaroth is confident that they would not, as they both kingdoms share the same goal for now, which is to defeat Elagos, but there is already a plan in place if they decide to do so. Godrieve warns them that ever since Elagos attacked the dwarves' village, he must have gotten a good amount of resources which he will use to expand his army bigger and stronger, and will also probably attack Ashtaroth's kingdom soon enough. Jean then argues that due to this castle having a very weak defense, Hijikata should stay behind and protect it. However, Hijikata denies this, saying that the battlefield is the actual place his true skills will be allowed to be seen, so Jean should stay back, which makes her quickly grab Ashtarot and tell everyone that she needs to be there to protect him as she is his future bride, which brings a shock of jealousy to Eve, who questions Jean's statement. Hijikata makes a joke that the castle should be guarded by Godrieve, as he will just be defeated in an instant on the battlefield due to being a soul that can vanish over one purifying spell, causing Godrieve to punch him, but it does nothing as he is just a spirit. Ashtarot then tells them that if they were to be ambushed, the dwarves will play a role to protect this place, and they should now be ready to move out the day after tomorrow, when Desprosius sets out to attack Elagos, but until then, everyone can enjoy themselves. Ashtarot, tired, moves out at night towards the library, where he finds Jean sitting at the table, writing something, who is also shocked to see Ashtarot there. Ashtarot sees her going through many books, but it turns out that she cannot read, so she was just looking at pictures in each book. He then decides to teach her how to read, but letting her read it as well so she does not get bored. She makes a funny remark that he might also say the same thing in bed, as Hijikata taught her that this is what men who are scum do. But Ashtarot denies it. When he starts with the alphabets, Jean jumps in his lap, saying that she wants to learn a specific word today. He asks her what that word is, to which she replies it's Ashido, the real name of the demon Lord Ashtarot from his previous life. When completed, she folds the paper and kisses it, then puts it into a charm that she says protects her from damage where the charm is, so she keeps it where her heart is placed if she has the name of the person she loves in it. Ashtarot says that he does not want her to be damaged anywhere in that case, but Jean says that God protects her like he did in the Battle of Orleans in her world. Ashtarot then disregards the fact that she needs the charm to protect her since God is doing it, but she tells him that God also takes rest sometimes. Jean claims that they are strong, so the upcoming battle will be easy. However, she is worried about Ashtarot's protection as he does not have gods, so he asks if he also needs a charm. Jean tells him that there is no one in his heart that he loves like that to put their name into the charm, so she kisses him on his cheek as a charm, saying that at least now his head is safe from any damage. This startles Ashtarot, and so Jean teases him more about how innocent he is and grabs onto him again. 2 days later, out in the open, Ashtarot along with his cavalry wait to flank Elagos' castle. Meanwhile, Desprosius sent their 2,000 men to fight against Elagos' army of 700 on the west, while at the same time being attacked by an army from the east, which makes it easy for Ashtarot and party to invade the castle. Eve asks if Elagos was always this irresponsible troublemaker, but Ashtarot tells her that this happened only after Shartle joined them. Due to that, while Elagos was able to expand and gain a lot of territory and resources, he also made an enemy of all the kingdoms around the area, which causes his downfall. Knowing this, Eve says that this should be easy and perfect to attack him now. However, she suddenly spots a large group of goblins coming out of a cave. Jean counts them to only 100 and thinks that Elagos is mocking them by sending such a small number, and so she wants to end this quickly. However, Hijikata steps in and asks Ashtarot to let him handle this army of goblins alone, as he feels like his skill has reduced due to doing nothing ever since he was summoned. He calls it a warm-up when suddenly a wrecking ball flies towards him and smashes into the ground, causing a very large smoke screen. Out comes a very large goblin, capable of speech, who calls himself the user of the Morning Star, the strongest retinue in Elagos' army, Gabaki, and is proud of the fact that he is very strong, so a small human like Hijikata can never defeat him in a one-on-one battle. Hijikata then smirks and proudly announces himself as the general of the Shinsengumi, and how he can quickly kill off one small goblin like Gabaki, and warns it to not look down on the nation of the rising sun, while taking his battle stance and drawing his sword. The fight begins between Hijikata and the goblin giant Gabaki, which Gabaki does not like being called as he claims to be a hobgoblin. He again smashes his wrecking ball, which he has named the Morning Star, into the ground, which Hijikata easily dodges, but Gabaki quickly follows and extends his arm through the smokescreen, created by the smash earlier, to try to grab Hijikata, but Hijikata easily dodges that grab too and jumps on top of Gabaki, who is dumbfounded as to what happened. As Gabaki is realizing his situation, Hijikata slices of its entire head from its body in one slash, saying how easy it is to read such a giant's slow movements. He laughs menacingly and shows the cut-off head of Gabaki to the rest of the minions, who get scared to see that and start to retreat due to fear that even Ashtarot is sarcastic about who the actual bad guy is. However, he makes full use of this opportunity to destroy all of the scared goblins and asks his army to advance, which they successfully do. With how easily they killed the goblins, Ashtaroth and party wonder how weak they were, with Jean slipping a sarcastic remark that they got scared due to Hijikata's scary face. Ashtaroth thinks and comes up with the conclusion that it is either that or Elago's army on the west is getting attacked as well, so they might not have enough soldiers to send to the south, as he uses his spell on a bird flying by to take a look at what is really going on. As he enters the eagle's body through his spell, his actual body falls down unconscious, which worries Hijikata, Eve, and Jean. While they are trying to get him up, Ashtaroth sees that the battle on the west is going very badly for the army of Dysprosia on the west, as most of their 1,000 soldiers have been killed with sheer numbers of weak monsters on Elgio's side. He realizes that humans are at a disadvantage in this battle, and so he re-enters his own body, which was crowded upon by his party. Jean tries to sneak in a kiss to wake him up, with Eve stopping her hesitatingly. Ashtaroth wakes up on his own and informs them that Dysprosia has already fallen on the west side. He says that the east side will also lose similarly, as the army of 10,000 undead on Elgio's side are too many for them to handle, and thus they will also come to the south to fight them. He also guesses that Elgios is about to attack his castle, which is confirmed by a messenger, and this causes Ashtaroth to worry about the old dwarves at the castle. Back at the castle, the dwarves are putting up a strategic defense by using cannons, land, and magic to stop and defeat the army of Elgios before it can reach the city. Under Godriev's command, they are putting up a good fight, using even giant golem to aid them in the battle, and Godrieve also appreciates Ashtaroth's predictions of how this can go, so they prepared lots of ice crystals in advance. Godrieve is trying his hardest to not let Elgio's army in the castle. Meanwhile, Ashtaroth is not as worried since he knows that he had them prepare for this sort of attack, so they should be fine, but presents the current party of Eve, Hijikata, and Jean a different problem, that is that the undead army is unkillable and can only be exhausted, as it is always a battle of endurance with them, based on their previous fight, to which Jean agrees tiredly. Hijikata asks Ashtaroth if he has a plan for this though, which Ashtaroth says that he does, and it is to directly and quickly defeat the demon lord Elagos first, which would turn the tables in this battle. He then points to Eve, who already knew about this plan, and gives her a mysterious bag saying that she is the key and knows what to do, with Eve agreeing that this is her true duty in this battle. Hijikata first criticizes Ashtaroth's choice of a battlefield, which is a narrow valley, but when Ashtaroth explains to him that it is to their advantage since battling 100 men in an open field is difficult, but a valley will let them fight less men at once, Hijikata agrees and move on. Though he is surprised that Ashtaroth was able to come up with such a strategy, which Ashtaroth corrects, saying that he got to know of this strategy from a distant nation called Greece and its Spartans, who fought their neighbors Persia with only 300 men compared to Persia's 100,000 men, and how this situation is sane for them. He tells Jean and Hijikata how Leonidas, the leader of the Spartans, stopped the 100,000 Persians in their tracks. An army from Athens cutting their supply line forced them to retreat, which resulted in the death of those 300 men and Leonidas, though he is remembered in history. Unfortunately though, this feat is not something Ashtaroth can achieve, but he at least wants to save however many he can. And also the people back at the castle. Jean lovingly calls him a greedy man, but Ashtaroth thinks to himself that he is only a realist, one who never had anything to lose nor had fear when he was first born, but now he has plenty of things to care about and he feels responsible, so he proudly claims that he has no plans of dying here. He thinks to himself that they will surely come back alive and celebrate with all of them together, whilst moving forward on their horses and cavalry through the narrow valley, when suddenly Ashtaroth notices something. At first he thought that it was the army that defeated Dysprosia in the west, but he realizes that they cannot be that quick to reach here already, which is then he sees corpses of the goblins rising from the dead, and it clicks in his mind that the troublesome necromancer, Shartle, survived. A black eagle flies across them, onto a mountain top where there is a figure standing, awaiting Ashtaroth and screaming how he missed him. That figure is revealed to be the old madman necromancer Shartle, who meets the eyes of an angered Ashtaroth. In Elgio's castle, he is punishing a servant of his that has already failed him twice. The servant is seen with an entire arm cut off and bleeding while he apologizes. The other old person who stands beside Elgios asks him to spare the servant since he would die if this continues, but in between that sentence, Elgios, without hesitation, cuts off the head of that old person in one clean slice, and later angrily states that he does not take orders. No one can go against Elgios, regardless of who they are. Now, on the battlefield, Ashtarot and party is curious as to how Shartle survived that explosion in the mining cave, which makes Ashtarot guess that he must have used the other undead to protect himself from the explosion, and then later came out of there making himself look dead to not get caught. Hijikata guesses that Shartle must really hate Ashtarot for him to come all the way to this valley, rather than the castle. Jean asks him to stay back, but Hijikata says that that is not a choice since they are surrounded by a very large group of undead and they must take care of that first. Jean then steps forward, claiming that now that she is Ashtarot's wife, she is no longer a maiden of Orlin and charges forward with her sword drawn out. She rushes towards the undead army and starts killing them very swiftly and efficiently, using her sword and brute strength, even throwing a goblin that attacked her from behind. She uses a whirlwind-type attack with her holy sword, Noble Joyeuse, while showing it off to Hijikta, who claims that it is not that bad and he must duel her when they win here. While Hijikata and Jean take care of the zombie army, Shartle tells Ashtarot about the messed-up dream he repeatedly had when he was sleeping in that cave, about a rotten version Emoff Ashtarot's body in his hands as he controlled him, and quickly attacked Ashtarot with a lightning strike. Ashtarot dodges it and gets behind Shartak in an instant, making a sarcastic remark that Shartle is still sleeping as his attack was slow, and this shocked Shartle. Using his flying horse, Ashtarot avoids a death spell casted by Shartle that instantly kills any living thing it touches, which makes Ashtarot acknowledge Shartle's power as a strong necromancer, so he creates a protective barrier for himself and his horse. Shartle tells Ashtarot that he is that strong due to being a retainer of Lord Elagos, but Ashtarot counters by saying that if he kills Shartle, the undead army will just move around aimlessly. But Shartle tells him that he made them obey both his and Elagos' commands if he were to die. While Shartle praises his lord in a lunatic way, Ashtarot figures that Elagos is sitting back at his throne, able to command these undeads as he wills, which is exactly how a king should fight. But Ashtarot thinks that this is a letdown of battle by Demon Lord Elagos, since Ashtarot also fought Savnak, who was also fighting on the front line, regardless of it being a losing battle. But he died with pride as well. He mocks Elagos, who is observing the battle through the black bird from before, saying that Elagos is a coward who observes from a safe space, which provokes Elagos a little. Using this as a distraction, Ashtarot attacks Shartle with a spell, who shrugs it off and calls out Ashtarot's cheap provocation, which is not enough to draw Elagos out. Sure of himself, Ashtarot claims that Elagos will surely come out of his hole as he is a prideful king who has never been called out like this, but first, Ashtarot wants to take care of Shartle and strikes him with a very strong spell. As Shartle falls to the ground, Ashtarot and Jean rush in to deal the final blow, as Shartle blurts out a desperate threat that he can turn them onto a corpse for his own use. Ashtarot calls him even worse than trash, completely useless, as he recites a chant to a forbidden spell which surprises and scares Shartle, since Ashtarot is just a new demon lord. Ashtarot entraps Shartle in the spell and screams flare as a large burst of energy bursts, and completely burns Shartle to ashes with his corpses, having a defeated and helpless look. Shartle then dies while his last words still being a baseless threat as Ashtarot walks towards his ashes. Jean jumps on his back and congratulates him for defeating Shartle, but the battle is still ongoing as Elagos can control the undeads, so they prepare to fight and kill them. Suddenly, black clouds start to gather at the sky above them, from which a knight in black armor, riding a black flying horse, emerges, which the Demon Lord Elagos. Demon Lord Elagos finally arrives. His immense aura and pressure immediately awares Hijikata that he is a lot stronger than Savnak. However, Elagos' first act as he got there is to take the pitiful corpse of Shartle that was burned to cinders and separate it into a lot of ghost souls that start to fly everywhere uncontrollably. Ashtarot is surprised that this is all it took to bring Elagos out, but Elagos tells him that anyone who opposes him dies, including soldiers that are uncontrollable like Shartle. So as the ghost souls fly everywhere, they enter the bodies of Ashtarot's soldiers, instantly killing them. Ashtarot decides to take the ghosts on by using his magic, and orders Hijikata and Jean to go and fight Elagos. He tells them to endure the fight for a short time, while Eve is on her secret mission, to which both of them agrees to and charge straight at Elagos. Elagos badmouths Ashtarot, calling him weak and powerless surrounded by similar people, to which Hijikata takes offense and strikes Elagos, but is parried. Then Jean and Hijikata rush him with several blows together, but Elagos is able to block them all. Jean worries that Elagos is too fast for them. However, Hijikata finds his movements slow and stabs Elagos in a dangerous area. But that does nothing to Elagos, as he instantly starts to heal and strikes back at Hijikata, wounding him instead. Jean and Hijikata are shocked to see such fast regeneration and hopelessly attack him because Elagos receives no damage. As the battle goes on, Hijikata and Jean, and so does Ashitara, grow even more exhausted. They worry that they might die here with no way to fight. But Ashitara then tells them that this is no place to die, especially for Hijikata, who was promised a death by 1,000 arrows on a better battlefield one day. He also tells them that they were only supposed to endure and not fight to kill, as it was out to do something, which she has now done. Elagos starts to feel light and a loss in magical powers, which makes him realize that his core has been damaged. Ashitara tells Elagos that Eve, his strategist, has destroyed his core, which Elagos cannot believe as he thought his castle is not breachable, let alone his core being found. Shocked and confused, Elagos reveals where his core is hidden and how he has killed everyone that knew of it, so Eve could not have known of it. But this was also a trick by Ashitara to tell Eve where his core was, which further led to Elagos digging his own grave. Then, Ashitara tells Eve to go ahead and destroy it, so Eve, using a big hammer, jumps off from a giant golem hand and strikes the core of Elagos, while Elagos on the battlefield pleads to not destroy it as he will die instantly. A mysterious figure is shown sitting on a spatial object, congratulates Ashitara for winning another battle against a demon lord. It was a goddess who witnessed the death match between the demon lords. Ashitara asks Eve if she heard the secret place where Elagos' core is hidden, and so she goes for the strike at the core. Elagos pleads Ashitara to make her stop, but feels a sudden shock as his core is shown to explode. Shivering due to his life slipping away, Elagos realizes that Ashitara did not know about the location of his core, and wonders why he felt his power vanish before, so Ashitara tells him that he only knew after Elagos himself revealed it, and explains how he was able to temporarily take away his power. Back when Savnak was defeated, Ashitara mixed the magic power that he removed from his ashes with a magic crystal and sealed it in using a sealing spell, and then made Eve use that spell from within Elagos' castle, which stopped the magic power that was coming from the core to Elagos. Elagos helplessly experiences his magic leaking out of his body, which leaves him in disbelief that he is going to die. While Elagos is slowly dying, Ashitara tells him that despite being weaker than him, Ashitara won because he had his comrades with him that helped him win. And since Elagos is basically dead anyways, Ashitara gives him a choice to either die like this or become Ashitara's ally, saying that he might be saved if he picks the second choice. Slowly removing his helmet, Elagos laughs at such a poor choice, as it hurts his prideful self as a demon lord, while also calling Ashitara as merciful as a human, unlike a demon lord, as Elagos points his sword in the direction of Ashitara. Ashitara then requests Jean's sword, calling this an unfortunate turn of events, and instantly starts to clash his sword against Elagos. They have an intense series of clashes, with Elagos blocking all of Ashitara's attacks and striking him in the stomach, giving Ashitara a deep wound. Using this opening, Elagos quickly steps forward to deal another serious injury to Ashitara, but gets cut deep instead by Ashitara's quick strike. Ashitara quickly goes for a second back-to-back strike, but his foot gets held by a cursed body of Shartle, who placed a curse on himself before dying. And while Ashitara is shocked to see that, Elagos takes another swing with Jean screaming for Ashitara to be okay. Luckily, Ashitara dodges that quick song but trips and falls to the ground, which gives Elagos another chance to deal the final blow to Ashitara, but he stabs the cursed body of Shartle instead, saying he does not want anyone interrupting his fight as he holds his pride as a demon lord, and the fierce battle between the two continues. However, while Elagos charges for a very strong swing to end it in one strike, Ashitara takes advantage of this moment and stabs him in the stomach with Jean's sword, finally ending the fight. In his last moment, Elagos smiles and praises Ashitara as he is the only one who survived amongst the many who rejected Elagos before, and vanishes by turning into dark smoke before he could get his last words out. However, Ashitara already knew that Elagos meant that he can reach the top of this world as the sun comes out on the battlefield after a long stormy day. Jean comes running to check up on him, so Ashitara tells her that it might have been the lucky charm that protected him. Then he turns around towards his army and thanks them for helping in such a disadvantageous battle, by bowing his head due to him also feeling bad about putting all of them in such dangerous situations all the time. Hijikata and Jin tells him that the general should not bow his head so easily though. Hijikata mentions it's Sun Tzu from his world, who also said how small allies can defeat big armies through ways that are beneficial for them, and this will help Ashtarot grow stronger. Jin and the army then continuously praise Ashtarot for his amazing leadership skills, care for his army as the death number is always so low, and how he gives his best in such dangerous situation. This makes Jin proud as she once again claims that he is her husband. This makes Ashtarot feel a little embarrassed, which Jin points at and tries to tease him, but unknowingly pats him in the one spot that was hurt during his battle with Elagos. After this, the party meets up with Eve, who at first is happy to see them, but is suddenly shocked when she sees Ashtarot lying unconscious on horseback. This leads to both Eve and Jin nursing him back to health while fighting over who would do it, and Hijikata enjoying his time off after a battle like the playboy he is. When Ashtarot is back to full health, he is burdened with a job to award the battle heroes, in this case, Hijikata and Jin, but because it is those two, it is really hard for him, as both of them denies all of the rewards given to them, as they are currently happy with what they have got, which means Jin is never going to leave Ashtarot's side since she is his supposed wife, and Hijikata is happy with the brothel Ashtarot had people build for him. Ashtarot gets annoyed and decides to give those rewards to other deserving people. Eve and Ashtarot then take a walk in the castle, talking about how big of a job they pulled off, even though quite risky, by using the wisdom and the ability of Ashtarot to never give up and come up with strategies on the spot to turn the tide of battle in his favor. This is how Eve praises him with a huge smile on her face and a proud expression. However, Eve adds that it is not just Master Ashtarot's amazing skills and wisdom, which other people praise for his victories, that his kind heart that people who work under his command are so united and admire Ashtarot. This leaves him speechless for a bit as he is still not sure if that is true and Eve might be exaggerating. She denies this and tells him about his act of not enslaving or killing people of Sabnok, an enemy demon lord, nor did he deny help to the dwarf village, even though he was never close with them, while also making a friend out of the village chief Godrieve. She then pulls him over to the gallery to show him the celebrations his people are carrying out because of the amazing victory they just had, which makes Ashtarot finally accept all of what Eve said, and with a smile launches some very beautiful fireworks to show how thankful he is to his people for supporting him this much, which in turn makes Eve and everyone else quite happy as well. Sitting on his throne under his life core, Ashtarot explains how demon lords have many different names they are called, but only a few call him by those different names. He was called a realist demon lord and a two-faced coward, until he won against two of the demon lords, Sabnok and Elagos, which got him such titles. Eve worries that her master's name is being spread in bad light and should be prevented, but Ashtarot tells her that it is not necessary, as he was the one who spread those names in the first place. He then explains how Two-Faced Coward was a name given to a Japanese lord, Sanada Masayuki, which was supposed to be in a different feel, and so he used the name. Eve is disturbed about this fact as she thinks this will make the people around her master be scared of him, to which Ashtarot confidently replies that he expects them to, by giving an example of a venomous cobra being in the room right now, which would scare people away and stop them from giving rise to a dangerous action from the snake. Though this snake does not really affect Eve, Ashtarot still asks her to act scared so his example could work, which she does by fake screaming. He finishes off this explanation by saying that if the other kingdoms know about his scary and smart personality, they would not attack them even if they leave somewhere, since the other kingdoms will surely think that he has some way to keep his castle safe. Eve then gives him an idea to summon an intelligence team to gather information by using the materials from the last war, to which Ashtarot agrees to because he does not want any more slimes as his soldiers like last time. So they enter the cave for summoning with the goblins moving the resources behind them. Ashtarot asks Eve if all the monsters in this world were first summoned by the Klein Vase, the pot where he adds resources and gets new soldiers, so Eve tells him that yes, all of them first came from this pot, but later grew in numbers through natural means and have been for many years, so all the monsters found right now are of this world. Ashtarot further asks her if there is a difference between summoned monsters and naturally born monsters, and is told by Eve that the summoned monsters have a core which can weaken them if destroyed. This fact freezes Ashtarot in place, as he remembers how the undead army of Elagos also stopped once their magical supply was broken off, and Eve adds that those undeads were unusual beings, so they could not have existed without magic either way. Concerned, Ashtaroth asks if Eve is the same, but she calms him by telling that she is a demon who can fight without a core, and jokes about how she would kill herself if her master was to die. She is together with him in life or death. This puts Ashtaroth to ease, and then they start the summoning a new monster, Hanzo, a ninja creature who is ready to follow Ashtaroth as his leader from the start, but has one condition, that he has to move on his own during a few situations, which Ashtaroth does not mind as long as he gets results. Then Hanzo's team arrives as well, and they all start working under Ashtaroth, which then later helped him get a ton of information about the kingdoms near and far away from his own castle. After finishing his report, Hanzo tells Ashtaroth that his team needs a leader. Upon Ashtaroth asking, Hanzo says that he is skilled in information collection but cannot lead or fight. He asks for a hero who can, which gets Ashtaroth thinking of how he does not have a hero who can pull off sneak attacks. Thinking about his heroes, he thinks how Jean and Hijikata are good users of the swords. They cannot carry out an assassination, while Eve is not good for fighting overall. He is troubled to find someone who can lead this secret army, but Hanzo recommends visiting the south dungeon known as Golden Ash Ruins, which was an old magical people's place, although the ruins have been looted by other people, which may make it hard to find good material. Hanzo also tells him about a secret room, which was an old mage's workshop, and that mage was researching about other worlds. Hearing about this, and that the item they might find is from a ninja, Ashtaroth gets excited and decides to go to the dungeon without further ado. He accepts Eve going along with him, but is confused as to who else to bring with him on this journey, which is when Jean and Hijikata jump into the room, saying how they should be the one to go and the other should hold the castle. Hijikata says that fighting monsters is way more fun than training goblins, while Jean admits to her uselessness in defending the castle. Hijikata then makes a hurtful comment about Ashtaroth using Jean as a pleasure giver, which is why he brings her along all the time, which angers Jean into half-heartedly denying that, which further angers Eve as she joins in the argument about who is the demon lord's actual bond here, while Ashtaroth gets annoyed listening to all of this. Then Jean and Hijikata challenge each other to a fight to find out who is a better military commander between them, but Eve suggests that they do it somewhere else in the arena. The arena is filled with an excited crowd, everyone rooting for both of them, as Hijikata and Jean step into the ground, face to face with each other. Ashtaroth is still confused as to how it came to this. The Colosseum, a place where people are put against each other to fight to the death for the entertainment of people and the king, and maybe sometimes even monsters are to be defeated here. This is similar to Rome's Colosseum, but Ashtaroth does not like this stuff, so he never used it. Ashtaroth asks when this was created, to which Eve responds that this was done by the castle's builders, and even the orphan they took and helped with Godriev's guidance. Ashtaroth then shows his interest in this battle, as he wants to the strength of Hijikata and Jean, who has been looked down upon by some people, as they think she is just a small girl in a Western outfit. Eve is surprised to see him that focused. Jean and Hijikata then walk into the arena, with full focus and full intention of killing. Ashtaroth then announces the reason of this fight and asks the fighters to be ready as he commands them to start the fight, but takes away their weapons for the battle and replaces them with wooden sticks, which angers Hijikata and Jean. He angrily explains that he does not want his generals to harry themselves for just a fight, but also tells them that the wooden swords are strong with magic, so they will not break. Both Hijikata and Jean then taunt each other by telling how they have the upper hand in using such wooden swords to fight, and then prepare themselves. Ashtaroth then gives a loud command for them to start, and Jean quickly jumps towards Hijikata to attack, which he blocks. The fight then goes on, with Hijikata calmly deflecting all of Jean's attacks, which makes her angry but still continue. Jean, however, tells Hijikata that she is the one going to that dungeon with Ashtaroth. Hijikata does not care about going to the dungeon anymore. Rather, he cannot lose to Jean, so he gets serious and lands a powerful strike on Jean, which surprises her. Hijikata then starts to use fast attacks on Jean, which she at first struggles to counter, but then uses a slide to get Hijikata off balance and headbutts him directly. However, Hijikata is able to handle it and stands his ground while letting a little laugh. Hijikata taunts Jean for using such stealthy techniques in a sword fight, to which Jean responds by telling him to respect her as she was brought to this world before him. But suddenly, Hijikata deals a powerful blow yet again. The fight goes on for a long time, enough to make the audience wonder how long has it been. But Ashtaroth knows that this fight is about to end, as the wooden swords, even though made stronger by magic, cannot handle the power of two skilled swordsmen. Suddenly, while clashing, both the swords broke off, which shocks everyone including Jin and Hijikata. But they both run for their actual swords right at that moment and draw them out to finish the battle. In the heat of the moment, both of them, unable to stop, swing at each other, giving each of them minor scars on face and armor, but then are stopped by Ashtaroth coming in between and using magic to stop their swords. After Ashtaroth tells them to stop, they both accept that they did go too far due to this battle. But as the battle ended with no clear winner, the crowd still goes crazy and starts to scream all three of their names, as they all enjoyed it. In another place, on the way to the Golden Ash Ruins, a young boy, along with his group, travels towards in the hopes to find the drifted object and challenge the dungeon. As Jean gets ready to leave the castle for the dungeon with her travel bag, Hijikata sees her off in a rather shy manner. The reason for this is when, after the duel, Ashtaroth brought both of them together in a room and questioned them about why the duel happened, to which they respond that it was to decide who will go to the dungeon with him. However, they both looked guilty. He tells them that even though he told them not to use their actual weapons, they did, and so the battle ended in a draw, so no winner could be decided, and that is why he will pick the winner himself and chooses Jean to travel with him to the dungeon, which makes Jean surprised. Ashtaroth explains that Jean was able to actually hurt Hijikata by scratching his face, while Hijikata was only able to break some off Jean's armor, so he lost. This makes Ashtaroth annoyed, as he thought they would fight, but they accepted it too easily. However, Jean complains that Hijikata held back on her because he could have easily hurt her if he aimed better, which he did not, on purpose, because he felt bad for her. Hijikata calls her a stubborn girl, as he admitted that she was able to hurt him, but I'd bit by Jean out of frustration. Ashtaroth also thinks to himself that Hijikata was indeed not aiming for Jean's face, but rather her body, because a lady's face is important, and that fits his character. In the present, Jean, Eve, Ashtaroth, and Hanzu prepare to leave for their journey. Jean is much more happier compared to yesterday, as she had a good night's rest and gets to go with Ashtaroth, while Eve wraps her in a hood. While Ashtaroth commands Hanzu to guide them there, Eve screams at Jean about how it is important to hide themselves in hoods because there are always people trying to hurt Ashtaroth, like in the dwarf village. She tells her not to call him the Demon Lord until they are out of the castle, which Jean is first unsure of and complains how strict maids are, but puts them at ease that she will do everything to protect Ashtaroth. Having said that, Jean gets sick right after they start traveling, as she is not good with carriages, which makes Ashtaroth wonders how she did not get sick on the last journey, to which she says that she was worried about him instead. Ashtaroth admits that thus carriage was made for carrying stuff, rather than for taking people from one place to another, so he asks Hanzu, who is disguised as an old man, to make the carriage go slower. Eve then gives Jean a medicine for her sickness, which surprises the rest of them as they see how well prepared Eve is for everything. As Eve is telling them about how much she is prepared, some bandits come out of the forest and threatens Ashtaroth and party to drop all of their resources and leave, which does not even make them a little scared. The bandits look at how pretty Jean and Eve are, so they decide amongst themselves as to who gets them and play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets who, while Ashtaroth looks tired of getting into this situation. Ashtaroth asks Eve who the Demon Lord is in this area, so she tells him that this area is between Demon Lord Zegans and Demon Lord Degarabia. So Ashtaroth figures that because this land is not under control of anyone, there are no laws and no proper way of life, which gives rise to bandits as the ones they are facing. He feels bad for them a little, but still punishes them by using a plant magic to trap them in it, while saying how they lost their humanity when they left their homes. At first the bandits scream, but then shout angry words at Ashtaroth, so he tightens the grip of the plant that is holding them, causing them more pain. He asks the ladies, as he can just finish the bandits off easily, if they want to do something else. Eve deviously plans to just end them as they hurt her pride as a woman before, or just feed them to boars alive. But Jean, being a holy saint, stops Eve and Ashtaroth from killing them, as she believes that the bandits can change when given a second chance, and their black hearts are just because they had to live hard lives. As Jean lets them go, Eve wonders how she is now suddenly okay when she was puking a minute before. As Ashtaroth prepares to let the bandits go, he starts to cast some sort of light curse on them when suddenly strong winds and powerful waves start to form, and as Ashtaroth covers Jean and Eve, he looks up at the sky and sees a giant wyvern creature which takes off the heads of one of the 3 bandits high up due to Ashtarot's plant spell, and this leaves him, Eve, and Jean in a state of shock. As the wyvern stops them in their tracks, Ashtarot and Jean prepare to fight it, while Eve takes care of the remaining 2 bandits that Ashtarot captured. As Ashtarot fires his ice crystal towards the wyvern, it easily dodges them with its quick movements in the air, which annoys Jean as she cannot fight it if it just keeps running away in the air. Ashtarot then commands Hanzu to go and strike the wyvern, which Hanzu instantly follows as he appears on top of the wyvern and pokes out its eye using his sword, to which the wyvern could not react to as Hanzu came in from a blind spot. This gives Ashtarot an opportunity to bring the wyvern down to the ground as he destroys its wing using a large ray of magic spell. As the wyvern falls down to the ground, Jean runs towards it with her sword ready and uses another big attack to make sure the wyvern stays down. This hurts the wyvern enough to make it scream very loudly, but gives Ashtarot a chance to use a stronger spell. As he recites the chant to cast his spell, the wyvern starts to take off to escape, but Ashtarot strikes it right at the moment it left the ground, with a huge sharp pole killing the wyvern. Everyone checks up on each other if they are fine, and as Eve runs towards Ashtarot, he looks back at the bandits, which makes them scared, and they drop to their knees to beg for forgiveness, which he gives them and makes them promise to never commit a crime again. He then picks up the dead bandit's sword and apologizes to the other 2 for letting their friend die, which makes the bandits feel guilty about their actions and also understand how merciful Ashtarot is. They wonder if he is anyone famous, which Jean hears and is about to tell them when Eve and Ashtarot cover her mouth as they made her promises not to do that. As they prepare to leave, Jean hungrily asks if they can cook and eat the wyvern meat, which Eve says is known to be delicious, but Ashtarot says no, as this wyvern just killed a person, and it is not so courageous to eat the meat of such a creature. However, Ashtarot does cuts out the liver of the wyvern, so Jean asks him why he did that if not for eating, to which he replies with that the liver can be used as medicine Atsamon material, so it is better to take it. Eve and Jean then understand why he did not stab the wyvern in that place with his pole, while he stores the liver in an icebox. They finally reach the Golden Ash ruins, and Hanzu tells them that the drifted item is on the 5th floor, but they have to cross the 1st floor and the knee-deep lake that glows blue. The 1st floor is also pretty narrow, so they will have trouble fighting monsters. Ashtarot, as they all step in the ruins, freezes at a spot and starts sweating in shock. Eve worryingly asks him what is wrong, but he tells her it's nothing and they move on. This confuses Eve a little. Further in the dungeon, Hanzu catches 5 adventurers in the dungeon who might also be looking for the drifted item. They then sneakingly listen to the conversation of those adventurers and hear a little boy asking his leader if the drifted item is here. As the little boy, Yuri, struggles to follow the speed of his party, the party members pick on him about how useless he is and how scared he is compared to the rest of them, and throw all of their load on him for the journey. This annoys Eve, Jean, and Ashtarot as they call those people stupid while hiding and listening. Jean prepares to go and teach those bad people a lesson but is stopped by Ashtarot when suddenly they start to hear very loud noises that is strong enough to shake them. It is a very large, slimy frog which stands in the adventurers' party's way who get ready to fight it by using magic and swords. However, they are quickly defeated by a large swing of the frog's tongue, since the fire magic of their party's mage is weak, even though the red-skinned frog is weak to it. The swordsman commands Yuri to oil up his axe and set it up on fire. As Yuri starts to prepare the axe, the frog sees him and attacks him straight away, but Yuri manages to perfectly dodge it until he reaches the mage and asks her to set the axe on fire, which she does. He then takes the axe and swings it onto the head of the frog, causing it to instantly die by being covered in flames. The party of Yuri then, in false confidence, think they won by defeating the frog when it was all Yuri's doing, which is noticed by Ashtarot, who was watching them sneakingly from afar. While Yuri takes a second to breath after his battle against the big red frog monster, his teammates pat him on the back saying how good of a job he did, but again leave him behind with all of the luggage to carry. Seeing this, Jean and Eve get angry because Yuri did all the work, and they still treat him like this. Eve says how surprised she was seeing Yuri's supportive abilities, and so they should hire him as one of the members of the team. But Ashtarot tells her that he is more than a support, one who can pull of amazing moves like earlier. Though Jean, as she is skillful in combat, thought that it was just ordinary, so they all decide to follow him secretly again, while Yuri collects the luggage of his guild and moves on. Ashtarot then approaches Yuri, appreciating his moves in the battle, and offering a resting place with his party as he must be tired to carry all of the heavy luggage, Yuri humbly declines his offer, saying that his party is getting even more further away as he speaks here. Ashtarot shows him that his party is selfishly eating lunch 500 meters ahead without him, and so he accepts the offer and also takes the cookies Eve offered to him so that he can also eat. Ashtarot commands Hanzu to take half of Yuri's luggage to make it easier for him, but when Yuri drops the bag, it slams onto the ground due to the amount of heavy weight in there. This shocks everyone, and they wonder what is in that bag. Yuri shows them that they are ores that his teammates asked him to gather whenever he sees them, which makes Jean jealous as she angrily asks him if that is what he was carrying while fighting the monster earlier. She even asks Yuri if he is a monster, which he immediately declines, saying that he is only human. Ashtarot then uses his magic to carry the load, and they sit down for a relaxing cup of tea. Yuri eats the cookies that Eve gave them and loves them, so he tells Eve that this is the most delicious thing he has ever had. Ashtarot asks him how old is he and why is he adventuring. So Yuri tells him that he is going to be 14 soon, and he is doing this to get money as his parents died. But now he is living with his aunt who is very poor. This adventurer job gives the most money in the quickest way, so he picked it. However, he also says that he wants to be able to get stronger as he wants to protect himself and his family. And he wants to become independent after becoming a great adventurer. He talks about his father, who was a great enough adventurer to receive a second name, like Ashtarot, and so Yuri took his father's sword to also become an adventurer like him. He looks at the sword and tells him that it is nothing extraordinary, but is perfectly suitable for his fighting style in battle. Jean points out that he did not use this sword in the battle before, so he tells that is because of the heavy luggage everyone keeps bringing with them. Ashtarot, as in disguise, tells Yuri to become a great adventurer and then to join the demon lord Ashtarot, as he is a respectable leader, with many races including human live under his rule with no slavery or problems. Yuri is shocked to hear this and denies that such a demon lord can exist, but Ashtarot assures him that what he said is real, and so he should go there one day, and choose whatever profession he likes. Yuri takes it all in and says that he wonders if the demon lord is human, and then later suggests that he will definitely come to Ashtarot's kingdom. But he wants to train and get stronger in this dungeon right now, plus he has his current party to deal with. Jean pouts and says that he should not care about that useless party, but Yuri defends them by saying that they properly him, which angers Ashtarot and Eve as they figure out that the party has been cutting Yuri's pays using different excuses. He tells them that it's little things like dropping an oar or failing to catch a fish, which Eve asks Ashtarot if this is like those black companies who hired him, and they should save him right now. When suddenly, they hear a sound from below, and Ashtarot immediately tells them that his previous party took a shortcut and reached the 5th floor by accident. This worries Yuri as he screams the name of one of his party members, Jace, and starts to run. His party is faced with a never-before-seen, horse-like creature, but with sea features on it, that came out from the lake Hanzu mentioned. As Yuri is getting ready to leave, Ashtarot stops him and asks him if there is any reason for him to help his previous party since they treat him so badly and not even pay him properly. He tells him to abandon them as it will be better for him. Yuri, upon realizing that Ashtarot may not be as good of a person, comes back to his senses and completely denies Ashtarot and tells his resolve that he has decided to with Jace and others, so he will go and help them. Listening to this, Ashtarot decides to help Yuri and commands his party to come with him. Yuri gets surprised to see this and goes along, but is still wary if he should trust Ashtarot or not. As Jace and his party are standing face to face with the creature from the lake on the 5th floor of the dungeon, Yuri, Ashtarot, and the other come running to help them fight that monster. Ashtarot then encourages Yuri to go and fight the monster on his own power, which Yuri confidently accepts and runs towards the monster whilst drawing the sword his father gave him. The lake monster then charges, its tail swings and attacks everyone with it, causing huge destruction everywhere and resulting in making Jace and his party scared, while Yuri is the only one standing and facing the monster. This shocks Jace greatly. Yuri and the monster then once again clash, causing vibrations and flashes throughout the cave. Meanwhile, Ashtarot uses his magic to protect everyone else from these dangerous events. Jace asks Ashtarot as to who he is, but Ashtarot tells him to focus on the young boy Yuri, who they have been putting down and bullying ever since, and see his power as he battles the very dangerous monster. The lake monster uses large water droplets as projectiles and attacks Yuri, who dodges all of them but gets hit by the huge tail of the creature due to being distracted by the water drops. However, he hangs on and stabs the monster in its tail, making it stop the attack midway and lands safely. Watching this, Jace and his party are surprised to see that this is the same Yuri that was traveling with them for a while now. As Jace stands there frozen at the sight of seeing Yuri excel, a piece of the root of the cave breaks and starts to fall on the spot where Jace is standing. Yuri notices this and jumps to save Jace, which he successfully does. While they are getting back on their feet, a new, very large creature appears out of nowhere and eats the previous monster entirely in just one single bite. While all of them are in a state of shock, the new creature finds and stares at them with a poker face. But it suddenly takes out its big tongue with such speed and grabs a hold of one of Jace's party members, who is then saved by Jace when he cuts the tongue of that monster in half. Jace announces that he cannot let Yuri take all of the glory, and so decides to take part in the battle, while everyone except Ashtaroth stays back to support both of them. Jace and Yuri take charge towards the direction of the large creature, who again uses its tongue to attack, but as soon as the tongue reaches them, Ashtaroth uses his magic to create water bubbles around them to protect them from the heavy and quick tongue of the creature. Yuri is surprised to see such a strong water barrier. Ashtaroth warns him that this will only protect them from the tongue, and not the weight of the entire creature itself when it jumps towards them. They then move to start attacking it, but the creature uses its feet and the lake below to dive and disturb their balance, although it received a good attack by Jace and Yuri. Ashtaroth figures that their attacks are not as effective, since the creature uses water to gain resistance against those attacks, so he gives Yuri a power-up and tells him to use it to finish the creature in the next final strike. Yuri, amazed by how quickly, timely, and strongly Ashtaroth gives them support, wonders who this mage is, but then quickly uses the power-up given to him by Ashtaroth to deal a huge blow to the creature on its body, making it fall flat in the lake. Yuri, thinking he defeated the giant creature, turns back to celebrate and take a breather, but the creature suddenly gets up and throws an acidic liquid out of its mouth towards Yuri. Fortunately, Ashtaroth reacts very quickly in that situation and manages to grab Yuri and Jace away from the acidic liquid in time, although he is surprised that the monster could still do something like this after getting hit by such a dangerous attack. Ashtaroth then defeats the monster fully by using a thunder spell on it and escapes with both of them to where the rest of the party is. Upon reuniting, the mage from Jace's party begs Ashtaroth to take her as his student so she can become as good a mage as he is, while Jace, finally realizing Yuri's strength, thanks him for saving them back in the cave, which puts a huge smile of Yuri's face and makes him very happy. He also then thanks Ashtaroth and his party for saving them because they might have died in there if not for them. But Ashtaroth corrects in saying that they would have died. He then asks Jace about the drifted item, which Jace happily tells him about, as Ashtaroth and his party deserve the item for saving everyone and defeating that monster. They all then reach the point where the drifted item is, only for Ashtaroth to identify it as a shuriken, a weapon used by ninjas from Japan, the place from where Ashtaroth is. Hanzo agrees with him, and also tells Ashtaroth that it may be possible that the hero this belongs to is the leader of ninjas, Hattori Hanzo, while the rest of them are still confused about what that item actually is. Hanzo explains how no kobold-style ninja could ever forget who Hattori Hanzo is, as he was the one who taught his ancestors the way of kobold, which then helps Ashtaroth to recognize him as well, and so he looks forward to meeting him in person. Then the two parties, after sharing their appreciation and goodbyes, go their separate ways, but not before Ashtaroth tells Yuri that this is goodbye only until they meet again. Jean then expresses her relief as all of this is over with a happy ending and no troubles. On someplace else, in the same void as before, the goddess is shown enjoying her drink and biscuits when she suddenly drops one, but after picking it up, claims that how surprised she is to see Ashtaroth grow so much stronger in such a short time, and how he might really be the great demon lord of this world. She then expresses her curiosity about the meeting of Yuri and Ashtaroth in such a friendly way, almost as if they have something big ahead of them, and how she will enjoy watching how everything happens from up in her throne. Ashtaroth, even though he has used Thurklein's vase so many times before to summon different types of races of creatures, and also heroes to create an army, still wonders how this vase actually works. It is also, like the core of the demon lord, just one in the entire castle, though he still finds the vase quite interesting, as he has been able to use it so freely. And it also reminds him of the first time he used it to summon Eve. This makes Eve remember a shameful memory from that time, as she was summoned without any clothes on, which Ashtaroth saw. She embarrassingly apologizes to Ashtaroth for such a shameful display. But Ashtarot is lost in the excitement of using the Klein's vase, as always, thinking about what he can get from it this time, while relating it to a sort of game back in Japan that also had the same feeling. Eve tries changing the topic from her memory of that day, and speaks about how every other demon lord does so many things to protect their core by using fakes, protection, or even hiding them, which makes it harder for them to be destroyed. So Ashtarot should also do something about his core, as it has been left unprotected for a while now, though he quickly turns down this suggestion, which makes Eve question his decision. Ashtarot gives her an example of a great military general in Japan called Takeda Shingen from the Warring States period, who, despite being surrounded by enemies, never really did anything to defend his castle, and his reason for that was that there is no point in guarding a castle with no men to protect it. He adds that the people are the castle, the hedge, and the moat, while mercy is his friend and hate is the enemy. He then states that the castle is meaningless without the people he trusts, and so if he has people he can trust, he has no need for a specific castle, as those people are his castle. And with this, he needs to stay with his people rather than sit in a castle. Basically, he needs to surround himself with people that G can trust, and no need for a castle, and then ask them to protect his core instead. He then thinks to himself that this current Eve will be able to guide any new hero he summons from today's ritual. He then drops the shuriken in Klein's vase, which quickly summons a shadowy figure who instantly sneaks up behind Ashtarot and threatens to take his head off if Eve were to attack him. Eve hesitatingly backs down, but Ashtarot confidently and calmly asks him questions about the figure, already knowing who summoned him. Ashtarot knows that he needs to show his worth to this shadowy figure, just like Hijikata, to make him serve under him. However, the shadowy figure tells Ashtarot that a weird goddess already told him about Ashtarot before he was summoned here, who told him that Ashtarot is known as the Coward Demon Lord, and he would like to confirm it for himself. Ashtarot asks him how he is going to test him, so the figure tells him that he is going to take a test using the information the goddess gave him. So Ashtarot asks him to remove the kunai from his neck, another weapon that ninjas use, so that he can take the test. The shadowy figure, however, says that he cannot remove the kunai, as it is another test that Ashtarot needs to pass, which makes Eve scared, but Ashtarot confidently uses his magic to summon undead skeletons from the remaining bones in the cave, and have them attack the shadowy figure using a crossbow. Ashtarot tells the figure that he has already experienced being threatened in this exact way, so now it is the figure's choice to go through with the test, as he is surrounded by many undead skeletons with their crossbows aimed at him, which are just as fast as the kunai that is aimed at Ashtarot's neck. Ashtarot then also tells the shadowy figure that being a demon lord enables him to even live when his head is cut off, but the figure has to actually survive the arrows from the crossbow, which makes the shadowy figure drop his guard, as his bluff did not work. They both then make a deal of temporarily working with one another, as both bluffed about their ways of tackling this situation. And so Ashtarot tells him that he is happy to have such a capable servants, even though it is like a trial period. Then Ashtarot asks the figure its name, which the figure reveals to be Fuma Kotoru. Ashtarot suddenly gets excited upon hearing this name and happily accepts Fuma as his new ally, while Eve wonders why Ashtarot likes ninjas so much. Fuma Kotoru is the ninja who helped the Hojo clan in the Warrings period to rise and helped to take control of the Kanto region by leading the ninja army, and served under them for over 100 years. He is described to be 2.6 meters tall, has overgrown muscles, very big and wide eyes with 4 fangs that come out of his mouth, and his head similar to the Fukurokuju with a high nose. This image is fitting of a monster, as the blood of the Fuma clan was mixed with those southern barbarians. Some legends say that he was the descendant of the demon, but he turned into a girl made like Eve upon summoning. Ashtarot asks if this is his real body, as it was different in the cave, to which Fuma says that a master assassin knows how to blend in surroundings. He then teases Ashtarot by offering him a sight of the private parts women have, but Ashtarot and Eve angrily shuts him off and asks for the test he was to take. Fuma then gives him the task of killing a boy, which Ashtarot denies as he is against useless killing of people, but Fuma tells him that the boy is actually the hero who has a skill that is a complete counter of Ashtarot's very existence. Eve denies this as false news since she never heard of it, but Ashtarot tells her that the goddess might have given Fuma that information since she knows everything. But he doesn't know what might that goddess be planning. Fuma tells Ashtarot that along with the goddess, she too wants to see his skill, so how will Ashtarot carry out this killing now as the realist demon lord? Ashtarot gets angry about how the goddess is using humans as toys in his mind, but still asks for information about the boy from Fuma, which she tells him that he is a young boy who will be turning 14 soon, and he is practicing his swordsmanship in a village in south. That boy was born in a village called Lisha, and is carrying out his father's job as an adventurer, since his father died at the time when that boy is very young. Eve and Ashtara both come to the realization about who that boy might be, which Fuma confirms as Yuri, the boy they fought alongside with a few days ago. Saying this, Fuma departs saying that she will be there whenever Ashtara wants her to be, leaving Ashtara and Eve wondering about what to do. After a while of thinking, Eve sadly asks Ashtara to give her the order to carry out this killing. But he says nothing until a cat comes walking in the castle. The cat has been around for a while now since everyone in the castle feeds it, and so Ashtara claims that even this cat's life is important and needs to be protected. This has been his job ever since he was summoned, to protect his people no matter who, and so if he shows mercy to that boy, it might just lead to the entire castle, which means his people to be destroyed. While holding the cat, Ashtara turns back towards Eve and claims that he already told her that he will kill the hero, and it does not matter even if the hero is still a child. This makes Eve give off a shocked and sad expression. For every 72 demon lords in this world, there is a hero for each one of them who has a special power to kill the demon lord they are supposed to fight, so the demon lords have those heroes killed as soon as possible. But Ashtara is annoyed by Fuma for forcefully carrying Yuri all the way to the castle, tied up in ropes. Ashtara tells Fuma that he came to check up on her as there were talks going around about a maid carrying a young boy around the city, to which Fuma seriously replies with that, even though their contract is temporary, she is still his servant and so would like to make his job easier, and then teases Ashtara asking whether he does not want to take the trial after all by acting all woman-like, but is instantly turned down by Ashtara, who then approaches Yuri to check up on him as he looked lost. Yuri gets up in relief and is surprised to see Ashtara in the castle. Ashtara then suggests to Yuri to take a walk outside with him to feel better, and warns Fuma to not follow him until he calls out for her, while she looks at him with an evil smile. Outside, Ashtara apologizes to Yuri for Fuma's rough actions, which Yuri explains were her coming to the village and tying him up without questions. Yuri then tells about his time after they split up, when asked about it by Ashtara after they left the dungeon with the drifted object shuriken, where he left Jace's party because some old man from the guild told him to stay back in the village and train, which made him a little stronger than before, although his teacher had a harsh training method. He, in turns, asks Ashtara about how he has been, which Ashtara says was just the usual. Yuri claims that he is finally feeling better now, but feels a lot more excited when Ashtara asks him to travel to town together. They then go and travel through the town, where Yuri gets approached by club women. They eat some really delicious sandwiches, and play around with a few kids from different races. Seeing this lively atmosphere in the town gets Yuri happy. Yuri tells Ashtara that this was his first time visiting such a big town, that is also very peaceful and so friendly due to having so many races living together and free. Ashtara asks him if he never got to see such a town before, since he was in a guild, but Yuri sadly replies that all he got to do before was carry and buy stuff all the time. Suddenly, Yuri appreciates Ashtara's works for this beautiful time, while also revealing that he knew about him being a demon lord, but his nature is that of a human king's. Ashtara gets surprised and asks him when he noticed, to which Yuri replies with saying he noticed it the first time they met in the cave, since both of them felt something strange during that time. Yuri then, depressed, tells Ashtara that he was told by the old man that he is a hero who will save the world, and even his overpowered strength and skills are not normal, but he always ignored these things as all he wanted to do was travel as an adventurer like his father. He also adds that being kidnapped and brought to a castle gave Ashtara's identity as a demon lord away. Ashtara then stands up, walks a few steps, and asks Yuri if he knows why he was called here. Since they both know that they are each other's natural enemy, due to Yuri having the skill to defeat Ashtara, they have to kill each other as well, even though both of them hold no intent or bad feelings against each other. Yuri then wonders if being a hero is worth destroying such a peaceful town, and killing Ashtara is hard since he is such a nice person. He tells Ashtara his wish, if he ever gets one, that he would love to be Ashtara's friend, if he ever got a second life as a normal human. After such a beautiful and kind day, Yuri is still unfortunately put to the guillotine, a way to kill someone by cutting their head off using a very sharp blade. Without resistance, Yuri is set up in the machine, with Fuma watching from afar, who, after witnessing the entire scene, comes to Ashtarot and claims his loyalty to him as her master. Finally turning back to his original body as a man, Fuma is accepted by Ashtarot, and he vanishes until called again. Eve asks Ashtarot if he thinks that Fuma noticed what actually had happened, but Ashtarot says that it was enough to convince Fuma, so it is alright for now. He then gives Eve examples of famous people who existed at some point in time, namely Toranno Kiyomori, who was able to destroy an entire clan without ever having to kill his natural enemy. And on the other hand, there was a Tokugawa Ieyasu, who would always figure out where an enemy might be born or come from, and finish them to keep his era peaceful and stable. He regrets not choosing these paths. Eve calms him down, saying that he was able to overcome this trial without having to use such methods. Ashtarot asks Eve about him, Yuri, as to how he is doing, to which she tells him that he is working in a dwarf workshop in the city. Then she expresses her surprise about how Ashtarot managed to create a perfect doll of Yuri and had that doll be placed in the guillotine instead of Yuri, although they are still worried if this will be enough to fool a ninja. Eve asks Ashtarot if it is okay to keep Yuri around like this, but Ashtarot tells her to not worry as he has sealed Yuri's both memory and powers as a hero, and he will reveal them if he ever gets them back, which is the reason why he is kept in the city. Plus, he used another spell on him that makes Yuri never be able to know himself as Yuri. And due to all this, he has now gotten a very strong ninja from the Warring States period, and also a very good blacksmith, the ones who work with iron to create weapons. Eve thinks to herself about how kind her master Ashtarot is. While in the dwarf workshop, Fuma visits Yuri, again in his maid disguise, and is surprised to see Yuri still alive as he leans uncomfortably close to Yuri. At first, he is curious seeing how a demon lord is so kind to even protect his natural enemy, but then realizes that this is a very risky and foolish decision on his part, as he goes to ask Ashtarot to let him take care of such business in the future. Eve wakes up early in the morning with a very lazy and sleepy look, something unlike her character throughout her day. Eve talks about the hero incident that happened a few days ago, about how Fuma was causing trouble here and there. But that day finished on a happy note, with Ashtarot not having to kill a child, and Fuma making a contract with Ashtarot as his servant. Eve was careful of trusting Fuma in the start, but he worked hard and brought Ashtarot very important information a lot of the time, so that makes the situation a little better. But now, all Fuma does is shift into his maid-looking self, and uncomfortably touches and sticks to Ashtarot, which makes Eve very angry at him. Fuma teases her, saying that there is no need to misunderstand his intentions, as Ashtarot tells Eve that he was just receiving a report from him. Ashtarot wonders why Fuma chooses to be a maid like this, when he was a man when summoned with such a manly body. Eve angrily shouts at Fuma for sticking too close to Ashtarot, as he can just give him the report by standing a bit further away, but Fuma teases her more by leaning more into Ashtarot, saying that such reports are better to give by whispering since someone might be hearing them. Even Ashtarot asks him to stop at this point. Eve then scolds Fuma that if he chooses to be a maid in this castle all the time, he should rather spend his time working as a maid than to take advantage of Ashtarot. Plus, as a maid, Eve is his master, not Ashtarot. Eve then lines up all of the maids of Ashtarot's castle in one place, as they all start their day by wishing everyone well to do good jobs. One of the maids passes Fuma his bucket, which he will be needing to do his work today, but Fuma has no reaction to it at all. As he squeezes the water out of the clothes he is cleaning, he expresses his surprise as to how the great Fuma Kotoru is doing cleaning, but Eve tells him that since he chose to be a maid, he has to do it. She also adds that after the previous owner of this castle, Azazel, died, a lot of the places in castle were changed and made better, as it was left destroyed in places. It is also the reason why so many places in the castle are left, since they need to be decided upon how to be used, and so they need a lot of helpers to work hard in this castle to keep the improvements going, even if they have to use a fake maid like Fuma. After completing their tasks, Fuma asks for his next job from Eve by calling her as Maid Dono, but is immediately corrected by another maid that he is to call Eve Sama, as she is the head maid who stands beside the demon lord himself. Eve then stands there proud as the other maid happily leaves, and Fuma stares speechlessly. Eve shows Fuma the things they do not use anymore around the castle, such as the water fountain, so they cut off the water that went in it and sold the fishes to buyers. And since they do not hold parties of important people and such, they do not use the party hall. Eve, however, believes that when one day they have enough people, they may probably use it to feed them, but as of now, it will remain untouched. Fuma expresses his concerns about having picked the wrong master to serve, as he does not even have enough maids to work around such a big castle. But Eve tells him that they were the ones who even started all of this, not wanting to use things that are not currently of any use whatsoever. Plus, Ashtaroth has no problems even if a door known is broken. Although Ashtaroth has one thing that he absolutely likes, and that is the tea Eve makes for him, and she blushes while saying that. Then she tells him that they have to prepare this castle for the day Ashtaroth becomes the great demon lord, while swiping off a little speck of dust from the table, asking Fuma to do his job properly. Throughout the day, Fuma takes his job seriously and works around the house by cleaning floors, dusting the windows, and notices the fact that the castle was, even though maintained, has been built up by cheap materials. Although the furniture is not expensive or very luxurious, it still has a classy look, which makes him appreciate Eve's work as the head maid. Finally, on to the last job of the day, Fuma and Eve take some boxes to the library, while Eve warns him that this place is quite messy, and so he should be careful. Eve gets to her work of arranging books and placing them in the correct order on the shelf, while Fuma noticed a big stack of books about to fall on where Eve is as she started her work. The books fall, and even though Eve notices them, she is not able to do anything but stare in shock, which is when Fuma suddenly turns back into his original body again and saves her from getting hit by the books. Being unharmed, she quickly looks back at Fuma, who expresses his relief on the fact that his Eve-sama is not hurt. Eve holds up her guard when Fuma again turns into a maid and tells Eve that he will be leaving to carry out his other duties, but gives off a troubling look. This makes Eve angry as she again gathers doubts about Fuma's true nature and decides to observe him herself instead of letting Ashtaroth do it. Jean and Ashtaroth sitting on a desk, having a class where Ashtaroth teaches her how to read and write, something Jean is really excited about as she calls him sir. Ashtaroth passes Jean a dictionary and tells her that this book has all of the words used in this kingdom and their meanings, so she should at the very least memorize all of the easy words first. Jean, happy with teary eyes, tells Ashtaroth that she would cherish this book as much as she cherishes him, since he went out of his way to create it for her. He hesitatingly tells her to do what she wants with it, but to also use it whenever there is a word she comes across which she does not understand. Jean, as her first word, quickly searches the book dictionary to find Ashtaroth, but is confused with what is written in front of that word. Ashtaroth reads it out, which says that he was born in the year 6457 and is one of the 72 demon lords, the weakest of them all as well. Ashtaroth thinks this is correct, but Jean points out the fact that he is written as unmarried. Ashtaroth still thinks there is nothing wrong here, but Jean jumps on him frustratingly, saying that they both are engaged even if not married, and forcefully tries to kiss him, while Ashtaroth fights her off with all this force. Suddenly, Eve comes running in the room, screaming that there is an attack, while Jean is annoyed about the timing of this warning. Ashtaroth gives a smile, as it had happened right as he predicted it. A few days ago, when there was peace and calm in Ashtaroth's kingdom, is when a demon lord decides to move out and capture a new land to add under his rule. Even though Ashtaroth hates fighting, his title as the demon lord makes it impossible for him to completely avoid it. And so if he has to create a peaceful city for the sake of people like Yuri, he has to unite all of them under one ruler. And so, Ashtaroth has decided on his next target, which is a trading city in the south of his castle's direction, ruled by the demon lord Decorabia. Eve states that even though Decorabia is a very strange demon lord, his military strength is even weaker than Elagos, whom they fought a while ago, but Ashtaroth reminds her that then again, their own army is not even that strong to begin with, so it is not right to look down on their opponents. He also regrets that he cannot just get more strong and powerful army like in a video game, which makes this situation a bit troublesome. While Hanzu is confused about what a game is, Eve excitedly praises Ashtaroth for being a great tactician, one who can think of different strategies to gain the upper hand in a battle even if their army is weaker. So if they are going against an enemy that has the same size of an army, this makes it a 50-50th situation, and Ashtaroth cannot lose that. Ashtaroth tells Eve that even though her support is great, he only chose this demon lord Decorabia because that is the logical way to do, as he is a realist. However, the manpower of his army is still lacking. Hanzo that suggests that they should instead use a strategy, rather than fighting them directly, which Ashtaroth likes and asks Hanzo if he already has an idea for this attack. Hanzo takes out a report and summarizes it by saying that Demon Lord Decarabia's castle is located in the center of a lot of trading routes, making it the biggest trading center and also enabling them to put high taxes on all sorts of products. So to weaken Decarabia, they need to take away the income he gets from that trading. Eve asks if that is possible, to which Ashtero quickly commands her to bring Godry to him as he has an idea involving him. Godry, when summoned, asks Ashtero if he has something interesting planned, and Ashtero tells him yes, enough to not be able to get bored. Ashtero asks Godry if he can make fake coins, which Godry says he can, but they will easily be found out because of the material uses to make them. Though if the material was of higher quality, it can make do, but the cost of making them is very high than normal. He tells Ashtero that those people can figure out if a coin is fake or not by putting it on a special scale that measures the weight of the fake coin with a coin that they are completely sure is real. But of course there are metals that are worth more than gold and weigh even higher. Ashtero confirms with Godry that if the weight of the fake coin is exactly the same as the real one, they can get away with it for at least a few weeks without anyone noticing that there is something wrong with the coins. Godry also makes sure that Ashtero has enough magical skill to make that work, which Ashtero confirms that he has, and brings out a jar with an eyeball stored in liquid, saying that this is the material they will use to create those fake coins. Eve and Godry shockingly asks him what material is that, and Ashtero tells them that this is demon god Elago's right eye. Godry and Eve are shocked to hear that, but Ashtero calms down the situation by saying that the world works like this where you get a rare reward for defeating a boss fight. As Ashtero is trying to make it seem like a less evil thing to do, Godry asks Eve if Ashtero is being too evil and smart. But Eve tells him that this is Master Ashtero's normal behavior. Ashtero then finalizes the plan by telling Godry that he will create a material using this right eye of Elago's, so he can create those fake coins with it, which can definitely work really well. Back at the Klein's vase cave, Eve and Ashtero get ready to use the eye by putting it into the vase, which is when Eve asks if it is not better to just sell it for money. But Ashtero denies this, saying that he would rather have Demon Lord Decarabia's castle than a few thousand gold coins. He says that having a city to him is much more profitable than gold coins, which will run out very quickly, as he throws the eyeball in the vase, thinking of the material that weighs around the same as gold, but it does not have to last forever and only a few weeks. Suddenly, a very huge amount of that new material comes splashing out of the Klein's vase and gathers around on the ground, which surprises Ashtero and Eve, even admitting that such a crazy request was accepted and got delivered. Using Elago's right eye to make a new material, Ashtero and Godry start working on making the fake gold coins to trick the already strange demon Lord Decarabia. The material is able to break down very fast, that then turns into worthless iron, making it the perfect material for this plan. To make this plan work, the first step Ashtero took was to send Fuma, disguised as a fat, older-looking merchant, and spread fake news about how he is going to be carrying a huge amount of gold coins to the southern cities, which will definitely make Demon Lord Decarabia to come and get the coins for himself. Of course, Ashtero knows that this will be easily seen through if only one person will carry this much gold coins with them alone, so he decided to divide them into 3 parties, which will enter Demon Lord Decarabia's castle from different ways into the trade center. And if any one of them gets attacked by the army of Decarabia, Ashtero will use this as an excuse to start a war, since a merchant under his name got attacked by another Demon Lord's army. When that will happen, Demon Lord Decarabia will quickly go for increasing his military power, and so will hire more men and mercenaries to do the job, which is why he will need to spend even more money on them. This is the perfect chance to distribute the fake gold coins, which will be found out very easily, further damaging the trust people have in Decarabia. In present time, Eve tells Ashtero that everything happened exactly how he had planned, when his men who took the resources to the trade center got attacked, and how Decarabia hired an even bigger army by using the gold coins. Ashtero says that this all happened very quickly, although the fight Decarabia took was on purpose since Ashtero is considered weak. Ashtero commands Eve to send someone who will ask back the gold and resources from Demon Lord Decarabia, which is only a false act, as it is only to delay them so that the fake gold coins can be found out. With an evil smile on his face, Ashtero excitedly waits for the next move Demon Lord Decarabia will take. Fuma comes back to Ashtero, who is sitting on a big table with Jean, Hijikata, and Eve also present. Fuma tells Ashtarot that he has spread the information about the 3 different parties all carrying fake gold coins amongst the people of the trade center, and if the 3 parties tell everyone the same story as well, everyone will believe them. Ashtarot tells Fuma that this is just the basic information that he already knew would happen. But now he wants information regarding the greediest and biggest people amongst the 3 parties so that he can make them spread the information, while Jean suspiciously stares at Fuma. Ashtarot claims that greedy people are easy to control using money as that is the only thing they like, but Demon Lord Dekarabiat is also aware of this very fact and how smart those greedy people are when it comes to money. Ashtarot asks Fuma how the fake merchants are doing. Fuma tells him that they are fine as they ran away the moment they saw Dekarabia's army come near them. Ashtarot is glad as he does not want any unnecessary lives to be lost in this battle. 2 weeks later, Ashtarot's plans started to work as the fake gold coins started to get ruined themselves, making the common working men of Dekarabia's city mad at the mercenaries who paid them to drink or eat, which quickly attacked Dekarabia's name with the word scammer. When he found out about this, Dekarabia was very mad at both the people who started to call him a scammer and Ashtarot off course. He also did not believe that his army, who he thought never needed payment to carry out his orders, also went against him, which was a misunderstanding, but the demon lords are always like that. In Dekarabia's city, regular people, mercenaries, and Dekarabia's army then all fight each other in anger as the fake gold coins affected every one of them, killing and hurting each other. In the crowd, 2 boys discuss how if they keep on pushing the army like this, they will be met with arrows causing them to die, when they suddenly get approached by a stranger in a hood who tells them that it is only a matter of time when Dekarabia kills all of them for opposing him like this, as he is a merciless king who does not care. However, that is not the case with Ashtarot as he only seems cold and rude from the outside. But he is actually very kind and helpful to his people, so they all should go and ask him for help in these times. The crowd start to have mixed opinions about Ashtarot as they also know that he is sometimes evil and does whatever it takes to win, like him defeating Savnak only a month after he became a demon lord, or executing a young child for being the hero. So it may not be the best to rely on him, but the hooded figure tells them that he would never spread fake money around the city, which causes all sorts of troubles for everyone in the city, and will also not kill anyone for only opposing him for the truth. The hood guy also tells them that Ashtarot has finished slavery in his city, so everyone lives together and free, plus the city is also very successful and grows quickly. He gives them this information to make a decision on their own, but he would definitely go to Ashtarot even if he is alone, which is when someone comes running towards them bringing a message to everyone from Ashtarot that says that he will guarantee everyone good and safety lives with all their possessions. As soon as this message is spoken about, the hood figure turns around and is shown to be Fuma, who was there as part of Ashtarot's plan and leaves. Due to these conditions and getting the safety they needed, the people in Demon Lord Dekarabia's castle break down the main gate of it using a cannon, which allowed Ashtarot's army to easily break in the castle as they were already waiting outside and started their attack. Everyone fights off the remaining of Dekarabia's army very easily, protecting the people, and quickly make their way into his castle, but are shocked to see the entire castle empty with the core just sitting there, unguarded by anything. They very easily approach Dekarabia's core, but do not immediately destroy it since Hijikata warns them that there might be a trap here, since Dekarabia is not like Ashtarot to leave his core unguarded. As soon as Ashtarot commands both of them to search the area, since Dekarabia might be waiting for a chance to attack, the core of Dekarabia opens its eye and attacks Ashtarot in an instant. Fortunately, he reacts quickly and creates a protective barrier around him, but is shocked to realize that the thing they thought of as the core is maybe the actual demon Lord Dekarabia, as a star-shaped object floats in front of them, staring them down in the battle. Ashtarot, surprised to see that a demon lord has a body of a star, even though Eve already made him aware of the fact that Dekarabia is a very strange demon lord, wonders if it can even be talked to. Suddenly, the star starts to talk, expressing how offended he is to be called such a thing. Ashtarot feels glad that he can talk to him after all, to which Dekarabia replies with saying that he may have a strange body, but he does pause his intelligence to be able to talk. Ashtarot, sarcastically, tells him that he fell to his previous fake gold coin trap even though he claims to have intelligence. Dekarabia admits to be blinded by the large of gold he got, which made it easy for him to fall for the trap, and he also praises the quality of the material used to make those gold coins. Ashtarot tells him that they were made from a material gained through a demon lord, and the best craftsman of this world, one who makes amazing things with great skills, made it into those fake gold coins. Decarabia also states that he found it very clever that Ashtaroth managed to mix up his economy like that so easily, which Ashtaroth takes as a compliment. However, he gives the star-shaped demon lord two choices, which includes the obvious one that is to fight him right now and die a respectful death, or two, join Ashtaroth and serve him as a partner. Demon Lord Decarabia rejects both options, which Ashtaroth was already prepared for, and takes out his magic attacks, but Decarabia gives him a third option, which is to fight to protect himself and his party by calling in backup. Hijikata and Jean step forward to fight the backup that Demon Lord Decarabia called, while leaving Decarabia to Fuma and Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth then quickly takes charge and calls out to Fuma, who comes out from a blind spot of the Demon Lord Decarabia and shoots many kunes towards the star-shaped Demon Lord, who was not ready to defend himself since he did not know about Fuma hiding. However, Decarabia easily protects himself from those kunes by creating a barrier around him without moving a single step, which produces a challenge for Ashtaroth to figure out, as the demon lords like Sabnok and Elagos were all warrior types which he defeated in straightforward battles, but Demon Lord Decarabia is a magician-type demon lord with no expressions but an eye, which makes it hard for Ashtaroth to understand his way of thinking. There is also a very strange air to Decarabia which Ashtaroth does not get. While Ashtaroth is caught up in his thinking about how to approach Decarabia, the star-shaped demon lord shoots a very powerful and fast beam from its eye, directed towards Fuma, who picks up on it in time and quickly moves out of the way using substitution technique, which is to use a fake body while your real body is in a different place. Decarabia thinks he got Fuma with that attack and laughs at Ashtaroth, thinking that this is all he got, not aware that Fuma is standing on top of him without even scratch. This shocks Decarabia, which gives Fuma a chance to start his attack as he jumps towards the star-shaped demon lord, drawing his sword, and deals a large slash across the star body of Demon Lord Decarabia. Ashtaroth figures out how Decarabia works, which is that he panics as soon as he is hurt with a surprise attack and can be damaged using physical attacks if he does not have his barrier up. Using this information, Ashtaroth attacks him using his magic ice crystals without giving Decarabia a chance to recover. Receiving so much damage makes Decarabia appear depressed, while Ashtaroth and Fuma come together to discuss their final attack to finish this battle, as Hijikata and Jean will also be soon done with the army. But in that moment, Decarabia suddenly screams in anger and releases many rays of bright, shiny light all over the place, refusing to die as he glows much brighter as well. Ashtaroth knows that he is getting desperate at this point, but because of his anger and random attacks, the whole place starts to shake and fall apart. Ashtaroth warns everyone to stand back and be careful, but suddenly a few rocks fall at the same place where Eve is standing. But she is fortunately saved by Ashtaroth's quick reaction and his protective barrier. Demon Lord Decarabia laughs as he tells Ashtaroth that it does not matter if he has managed to destroy this castle, as it is one of many he has, and as long as Decarabia's will is alive, he will not lose, and flies away from the hole in the roof of the castle. Ashtaroth watches him run and is warned by Fuma, who suddenly appears out of nowhere, that the number of enemies he had before has increased, but Ashtaroth is fine with it as he knows that is his fate as a demon lord. Standing in front of the empty shell, Ashtaroth orders Fuma to look for the real core of Decarabia. As soon as Fuma leaves, Ashtaroth looks towards Eve, who appears to be scared and panicked, so he pats her head to calm her down. She apologizes to Ashtaroth as Decarabia escaped because Ashtaroth was busy protecting her. But Ashtaroth reassures her that she is important to his army, so he had to protect her. And also Decarabia wanted to escape anyways from the start, so he would have one way or another. Eve is surprised to hear that, as she thought that Decarabia's core would still be here, even if he runs away, so they can destroy it. But Ashtaroth suggests that his core may not be in this castle after all he escaped. Everyone is confused about how could this even happen. But Ashtaroth figures that due to the weird air he felt around Decarabia earlier suggests that his core may not have been here from the start. Even though this is his castle, he somehow managed to change the place of where his core is. Hijikata thought that strange air was due to his weird star-shaped body, but Ashtaroth tells him that only magicians could feel that he had a very string power in his body. Eve and Ashtaroth figure it out that Decarabia has mixed his body with his core, and that is why he does not to stay in one castle. Demon lords are always very careful of everything since they are always in the danger of getting attacked from anywhere, especially their core, which is their weakest point as it holds their life. Mixing a demon lord's body and his core together is something Decarabia did to protect himself to such weakness, which may not be the perfect solution, but it definitely is better to just leave it to be found, and this enabled him to always run away safe when faced with problems. Since Decarabia does not care about his people, it was easy to make them fight amongst themselves, and since he abandoned his castle and land as well, Ashtaroth took over it as well, though he does not feel like he won since it was not a victory that he would have liked as a tactician. A lot of Decarabia's partners have given up after losing, while some have ran away to places unknown. Ashtaroth says that it is good enough that he got to take over the trade center, even if the demon Lord Decarabia ran away, since that was his goal from the start anyways. Different races like demons, humans, and demi-humans come to trade with the biggest trade center they are in. Ashtaroth is surprised, though, that a greedy demon lord such as Decarabia left this city so easily, to which Eve replies saying that he left because he is greedy. He also applied heavy taxes on his people on literally everything such as just entering the city, or tax depending on how big a building is, and tax on every person no matter how much they earn. Eve calls him a fool amongst fools, which Ashtaroth agrees to, as applying so many taxes on people reduces the amount of traders that come to the city. Ashtaroth talks about Fuma's Hojo clan back in the Sengoku period of his world, which applied a 40% tax on its people, building a successful city. Fuma feels a little interested hearing this. Ashtaroth then takes inspiration from the supreme leader of the Hojo clan and reduces the entrance tax by half, which he could finish entirely, but he needs the tax money. He then completely removes the tax on houses with more windows, as that caused people to build houses with less windows, leading to little light, which made them use candles, resulting in house fires more often. As for the per capita tax, which was originally applied to even little children who earn no money, Ashtaroth changes it so that it only applies to an adult. But understanding what an adult is a difficult matter, so he will make a registration of families. That registration will require every person's birth record, which will be kept in a government office, which he also wanted to apply in his own city as well. Ashtaroth tells Eve that these changes will take a lot of money to apply, but then the tax collection will be fair for everyone. He wants to use that same tax and use to make the city a better place for its own people as they are paying taxes reliably. The tax changes worked out well for the city as it grew more successfully and happily, as the new tax law about the lowering of tax on products made the prices cheaper for merchants. People could now have 3 kids without having to worry about the tax on them, and the window tax on buildings was completely finished. This entire process was working very well, as everyone like the dwarves and merchants started to work together in creating shops and homes. People who had less money were interviewed and given loans at low interest rates if they were trustworthy. Even Ashtaroth thought that this strategy was brave, but it is good to have merchants who bring money and products in and out of the city. All of this was working well, but Ashtaroth fell into another problem, which was that he now has 3 different castles to look after, which includes his own castle, Eligo's castle, and now Decarabia's castle. So now Ashtaroth is looking for lords to control these castles in his place, but he cannot find any suitable person for the job. He thinks that if he chooses Jean as the governor, the city will just turn into a food city, and if he chooses Hijikata as the governor, it will become a pleasure city, so he has to sacrifice his sleep to manage all of them by himself. Which is when Fuma enters the room and tells Ashtaroth that a hero has entered the Decarabia castle, which excites Ashtaroth enough to hug Fuma's maid form, which makes Eve jealous and angry, making Ashtaroth explain himself. Fuma then tells him that a man in retirement lies in the northwest of the Decarabia castle, in a cottage who is famous for his genius schemes. He was summoned by Decarabia, but ran away from there as he did not like the star-shaped demon lord. Fuma adds that Decarabia tried to get rid of that hero 3 times, only to fail all 3 of those times, and so he stopped going after him, since the hero is smart and can come up with good counters. Eve asks if it's a man who rebelled against the demon Lord Decarabia. Fuma says that he actually quit and only defended himself from Decarabia's attacks. Eve asks his name, but Fuma says it is unknown. However, the man is quite famous as he was known as a genius military strategist in the other world. Legends about that man say that he can collect 100,000 arrows in one night, even causing a natural disaster, and having him by your side can basically let you rule over the world. Ashtaroth decides to go on a trip to meet the man, but he needs to decide who will go along with him, as he remembers the whole battle between Hijikata and Jin from before. He wishes Fuma does not fight to go with him like the other two. When Eve comes into the room with only his luggage, and not hers, with a very disappointed face, Ashtarot is shocked and asks where her luggage is, and thinks if she is still feeling guilty about the fact that Decarabia ran away. She suggests Ashtarot to go with both Hijikata and Jin, as Jin will be sad if she is left behind. But she cannot go alone with her masty Ashtarot, as she will do weird things, so Hijikata needs to be there. As Eve tells Ashtarot about his change of clothes for each day, he makes a remark saying that Eve is like his wife, which makes her blush again, and so she leaves embarrassed. Jin enters as Eve leaves, seeing how red her face was, wondering if she has a cold, but Ashtarot tells Jin that this is proof of her being a girl. Jin comes and sits beside Ashtarot on his desk. When Ashtarot tells her that she and Hijikata will go with him on the journey to find the hero to defeat Decarabia, but Jin's first question is about if she will have to cook the food since Eve is not going with them. But Ashtarot rejects the idea that she does not have to cook just because she is a woman. She rejects that, saying that she likes the idea as that was normal on France to cook meals for their husband. Ashtarot tells her that he is not her husband, but asks if she is good at cooking, to which Jin replies with that she enjoys cooking, but she has no idea if it is good. Ashtarot asks if that is only because she likes food, but Jin says that she used to cook her own food on her journey before she came here. Ashtarot then asks her to cook a test meal for him, which Jin accepts, saying she will cook good enough for him to forget Eve's cooking, as she wears a chef outfit and asks what he wants to eat. Thinking long and hard about it, Ashtarot figures he wants to eat mayonnaise, a dipping sauce that France is famous for creating, as they are a cooking nation. But he remembers that Jin was alive 300 years before mayonnaise was even created. He also realizes that France was in a dark age during the time Jin was alive, so he should ask for something simple, and then request her to make pot au feu. Jin then gathers the different vegetables and uses her holy sword to cut them into pieces, and grabs the pieces of the floor to put them into the stove, as she uses the 3-second rule. Ashtarot comments on her hygiene, but Jin shuts him down, saying that Ashtarot might have lived good in his previous life, but she had to suffer and even eat vegetables bitten by mice, so he hesitantly asks her to be careful in the future. Then the dish gets prepared, and seeing how Jin did not do anything weird aside from using the vegetables from the floor while cutting them with her holy sword, Ashtarot expects the taste to be decent. But as soon as he takes the first bite, he finds it completely delicious, even calling it the best pot au feu he has ever had. That makes Jin really happy, and tells Ashtarot that he can look for the hero without worrying about food on his journey, as she scoops up another plate. Listening to the word hero, Ashtarot goes into thinking about how Fuma described the hero as the best military strategist in the world and looks forward to meeting him. While in a cabin in the forest, a person with long black hair, sitting on his desk, reads a lot of books, with his room being a mess and completely dark.